Boots on the ground, war pain on my face. Another body drop, homicide on the case. Block hot, every step, feel like a chase. But killers move quiet, vanish no trace. Street lights flicker, shadows twist in the smoke. Homies in the cut, hearts broke but never spoke. They set us up, now we the face of the dope. We can't win, it's like pissing up a rope. Soldiers of the block, marching in the dark. Scars on the soul, everyone leaves a mark. Ain't no medals, just survival as the prize. Gang life, battlefield where the loyalty lies. Soldiers of the block, marching in the dark. Scars on the soul, everyone leaves a mark. Ain't no medals, just survival as the prize. Gang life, battlefield where the loyalty lies. Trenches ain't dirt, it's concrete and pain. YN's vicious, tryna make a name. Homies got my six, but some switch for the game. Committing treason, all for some change. Blood on the curb, baptism in the grind. Cause in the hood, know it's pushing grind. Hands on the clock, spinning back with the time. Gotta be built for this, or you could lose your mind. Silent prayers in the alleys, cathedral. Cigarette smoke swirls, preachers lead though. Chain heavy, but the burden is heavier still. The battlefield's quiet, but the streets always kill. Soldiers of the block, marching in the dark. Scars on the soul, everyone leaves a mark. Ain't no medals, just survival and surprise. Gang life, battlefield where the loyalty lies. Soldiers of the block, marching in the dark. Scars on the soul, everyone leaves a mark. Ain't no medals, just survival and surprise. Gang life, battlefield where the loyalty lies. Roll, call it dawn, but it's ghosts in the ranks. Cash in the duffel, blood-stained banks. Graffiti on the walls, hieroglyphs of the lost. Every war's got a price, we just tally that cost. Drums of the night, thump louder than truth. Steel in the waist, no time for the booth. Enemies lurking, snakes hiss in the grass. Cash catching up, but we running too fast. Soldiers of the block, marching in the dark. Scars on the soul, everyone leaves a mark. Ain't no medals, just survival and surprise. Gang life, battlefield where the loyalty lies.
Revolutionary flames burning deep inside my heart. Great fires, reconstruction, and that ain't even a start. Copper fists raised high, aimed arrows, let them fly. Navigating the storm, it's always calm in the eye. Man, proof the system, returning fire in the dark. Show some heart, returning fire in the dark. Real niggas stand up, returning fire in the dark. Yelling fear, returning fire in the dark. Ancestors' blood in the soil, ink on the scroll. Kings in the shadows, but the throne's still cold. Echoes of the ghetto, gunmetal swinging low. Freedom ain't free, you know the cost. Skulls and bone, this a mama getting business. Back alleys whisper secrets to the stars. Bullet holes tattoo the hood like memoirs. The block's a graveyard, angels with battle scars, chasing revolution, but the devil stay on guard. Revolutionary flames burn deep in the heart, from the ashes of the streets where the riots start. Copper fists raise high, tear the system apart. We the fire in the dark, show some heart. We the fire in the dark, break, man, boost the system, return the fire in the dark. Show some heart, return the fire in the dark. Real niggas stand up, return the fire in the dark. Yelling freedom, return the fire in the dark. Poverty's a noose, hanging dreams by the thread. Politicians promise change, but we still end up dead. Fed lies on silver platters, feast on lead. The pen and the pistol both aiming for the head. Fuck some chains rattling, echoes of ancestors. Rebellion's a symphony, truth is the instructor. Loyalty's a gamble, trust under pressure. Life's a chessboard, pawns measure the treasure. Sins of the father bleed into the son. Cycles of the system, revolvers weigh a ton. Write our own history, ink mixed with the gun. Revolution ain't finished until the war is won. No fun, just run. The rabbit got the goddamn gun. Revolutionary flames burn deep in the heart, from the ashes of the streets where the riots start. Copper fists raise high, tear the system down. Fuck the system, return the fire in the dark. Show some heart, return the fire in the dark. Real niggas stand up, return the fire in the dark. Yelling flim, return the fire in the dark.
Ghana. Breeze on the beat. Come on, you scroll past everyone and sign. Laugh it off, call it doing fine. Coffee cold on your crooked desk. World on fire, you just need a rest. You scroll, you blink, cold years to slip. Head down in headlines, heart out of sync, you joke. I'm fine, your coffee's cold. You missed the moment, chasing the goal. To be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. Inbox red, but you mute the sound. Talking big with your head in the clouds. Weather changes while you're turned away. Storms already on your street today. Your mama call, you let it ring. Type call you later and change the thing. Your kid just danced in socks untied. You caught it sideways, forgot to smile. To be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. Look up just once, let it hit you. Let it hit you. Oh, truth hurts, so what? It'll save you before it breaks you. What if this day is all you get? Would you still hurry or taste it? Yeah. You scroll past another headline. Mute the sirens in your head. Change your channel on the chaos. Say you'll deal with it instead someday. Friends are shouting from the shoreline. You still laughing in the tide. Building castles out of deadlines. The water's on your side, yeah. Be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. The signs of the times all around you, but you can't see it, huh? Unable to see with your two eyes and a calcified pineal gland. Wake up. This wholesale hoe gonna
yeah. Mind and mist. Let's go on the track. They flood the block with sugar. Yeah. Call it love in a bright red can. Y'all just say pressure too high, my brother. But the corner got a 2-for-1 plan. They lace off school to sirens. Yeah. Mad with those cameras on the keys. Guidance counselor juggling 30 broken stories. Yeah. Meanwhile, prisons beating on beds. They say this beer on the radio. Same crew chain, same dead screw. Tell a young empress she only worth a shake. Tell a young king he only worth a clip.
This is math in the backroom ledger. Every life just a line of squeeze. Target market stamped on our faces. Low map mark, take what you please. Poison pushes in designer suits. Smile while with that clean white teeth. Demonic schemes in the ballroom hole. Turn our babies into balance sheets. American genocide. They dress it up nice. New war, new deals ain't life. We numbers, we ain't your price. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. They turned out Harlem to a slogan. Dollar man, you right by the church. Ashy playground broken, swing set, liquor store shining on every purse. They cut the bus line to blame us. When we late, when we can't clock in. Boss man talking about personal feelings. His cousin wrote the law, we drowning in. They call it church when they poison water. Call it order when they flood our streets. Symbol guns where the books are missing in. That's why we fight just to eat. They buy a culture, sell it back, hollow paint our plane as a fashion trend. But the zip codes with the softest sauce still decide how our story ends. Poison pushes in designer suits. Swell out with they clean white teeth. The money schemes in the ballroom hole. Turn our babies into balance sheets. American genocide. They dress it all nice. Do all new pills ain't nice. We know we ain't your bride. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We know it's hard. My grandma kept the mirth in the kitchen, quiet praise over pipes and plans. She said, baby, read every label, they ain't feeding you, they feeding their plan. You playing greens in the cracks of the concrete. Teach our sons how to bring out boats. Tell our daughter that crowns ain't class, cause they much more fire than me and you post. We study law like we study scripture. Court days, some go like holidays. It's they wage war on the way that we leave them. We wage love in 1,000 ways. From the march to the PTA meeting, from the cipher to the pastor mic. We 99s, we trace their money, try the shadows in the light. Into the poison pushes in the designer suits. Smile while wear that clean white team. Demonic schemes in the ballroom room. Tell our babies in the balance sheets. American genocide. They dress it all nice. New war, new pills ain't nice. We know ain't your vibe. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We live and do to some American. We live and do this American genocide. Yeah. Listen up. You have to pick a side. Yeah. 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 They profit when we're boxed in, color coded. Scroll wars, broke floors, mine's corroded. Got you barking at your neighbor for a headline. Why they signing off the city for a deadline? Yeah. Same rent late, same fridge bare. Same bus route, same blank stare. Why you beefing with the mirror, letting them demons in? Same wound, same blade, different spin. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You can fight me or you can fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unify, die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die. They sell fear like it's candy in a glass jar. Feeding panic to the masses, playing a black card. Left, right, that's a puppet in a split suit. Real power sitting quiet in a rich room. You throw hands at your brother in the same trench. Same cough in your chest, the same bench. If the landlord love you both in the same way, you ain't rivals, you just victims on a layaway. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You can fight me or you can fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unify, die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die. Hands up, not for trends, for each other. Name one win, they ain't split us to cover. We all broke, they just changed the shade. Same storm, different rain on our face. from a place where they rather see us vilify. Scrolling through the pain, pick a side, then we signify. Algorithm war, every comment like a battle cry. Either we expand the circle, or we simplify. Feet keep telling me I'm right, that's a lullaby. Rock us all to sleep, while the roof sitting over fire. Leaders talk tough, but they courage only monetize. I'm just trying to build a bridge higher than the border signs. Kids growing up thinking empathy is obsolete. Hearts on red receipts, love lost in the data sheet. History repeats when we treat truth like a product line. Either share the water or we watch the whole garden die. So I look my people in the face when the sirens cry. Pull each other up even when we don't see eye to eye. Hands in the middle, swear we live in what we testify. Say we rise together, this the code, unified die. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You could fight me or you could fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unified die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die.
The Epstein files continue to crumble the foundations of an old world loosely strung together by its anointed Luciferian power broker. Connections to Saudi royalty have surfaced, while Epstein being authorized to land at UK Royal Air Force bases has the British government scratching its head.
But who, if anyone, is following up what we now know from one email that I discovered, which is short, but brings in the Children's Investment Fund, of which Rishi Sunak was a partner. The advisor that sent it, who then goes on to also advise Sarah Ferguson, who is given a royal appointment from Mum, the Queen, for some sort of role that we don't know of, who the next day jumps on a plane to China to arbitrate a trade deal that is facilitated with Prince Andrew, who, as we know, then goes on to take probably a wholly different group of Chinese people into royal palaces, before we find out that they are not who they say they are.
The cold case of Alyssa Dimitrieva pops back up to the surface. A 17-year-old Latvian teenager went missing in August of 2011. A dog walker stumbled across her badly decomposed, partially clothed remains on the Queen's private Sandringham estate in Norfolk, prime royal hunting ground, the kind of place where the Windsors go to shoot pheasants and escape the spotlight. Police immediately launched a full-blown murder probe. Evidence piled up. Phone pings placed her last signal near Sandringham. 2 men were in custody, yet no charges, ever. Now under scrutiny as the British royal family squints in the spotlight.
There are villages within this estate, so it is open to the public in many places. Only around the house is it very private and secure. And this happened about a mile away from the main gates to the house, so it is in the Queen's backyard, you could say.
In Norway, across the pond from the UK royal demonic pedos, Crown Princess Mette Marit's son, Marius Borg Høiby, is on trial in Oslo, facing 38 charges, including 4 counts of rape, aggravated assault, threats, non-consensual filming, and more against multiple women from 2018 to 2024. Newly released Epstein files expose hundreds of emails between Crown Prince Mette Marit and the maitre d' of Satan from 2011 to 2018, chatting about island visits for family, her boredom with royal life, and topics like adultery and suggesting naked women pics as wallpaper for Marius. And right on cue, because she assumes she is above the peasants, she publicly apologizes for her poor judgment.
I just think it's extremely sad. It's sad that we have people at the very top who think it's acceptable to associate with a convicted paedophile. I find that quite tragic.
However, Norway just slammed the door on elite impunity. Former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland, an ex-Nobel Peace Prize committee chair and Council of Europe boss, has been charged with aggravated gross corruption over his deep ties to Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein document dumps exposed emails showing Jagland arranging solo and family trips to Epstein's luxury spots in Paris, New York, and Palm Beach, even after the financier's 2008 conviction for soliciting a minor. Jagland showered Epstein with gifts, travel perks, and possibly loans tied to his influential positions. The Council of Europe has stripped his diplomatic immunity at Norway's request, clearing the path for the indictment.
It is a very serious suspicion, and the circumstances that have been uncovered must be taken very seriously. I'm glad that I live in a constitutional state where the prosecuting authorities take their responsibility seriously, and I will be careful not to get involved because it is their responsibility.
Meanwhile, back in the United States,
Goldman Sachs accepted the resignation of its chief legal officer, Kathy Rumler. Recent documents released by the U.S. Justice Department showed she accepted gifts from Epstein and advised him on how to address media inquiries regarding his crimes. Rumler is the most high-profile banking executive to depart after the release of the latest Epstein files.
still zero movement on the home team pedo elites. It's the same old protection racket, while the world continues to furiously crack the code. John Bound reporting for Inforce.
That's the latest from John Bound. Find and share it at band.video. The surfacing of Roy's murder and sex claims. We'll be right back to Daily Dispatch. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the War Room. We've got a massive show for you today. Yes, the war with Iran continues to be a major topic of conversation. We'll get you the latest on it. Apparently, Marco Rubio is briefing the House Democrat or House Republicans, the House in total, on what the plans are for Iran. And some interesting developments with the aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford, which may be experiencing some mutiny. I think it's actually we're on the way to mutiny in a lot of ways. So we'll get into that as well. Just a ton of stuff to get into today. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Here it is, your Daily Dispatch. All right, here it is, folks, your Daily Dispatch for Tuesday, the 24th of February, 2026. Declassified CIA files reveal chilling blueprints to manipulate Americans' minds through covert drugging with vaccines. Oh, yeah, right. Who's this from, Alex Jones? What's this, an Alex Jones conspiracy theory? Yeah, right, it's the Daily Mail. Oh, my God, it's mainstream media. They're actually reporting on it. This is incredible. Of course, we've known this since the 70s, but thank you for the Daily Mail to follow up a good 50 years later about Project Artichoke. The report added to the CIA's reading room in 2025 details the government's once top-secret Project Artichoke that ran from 1951 to 56, focusing on behavioral control, interrogation techniques, and psychological manipulation. The 7-page document titled Special Research for Artichoke, with a attachment labeled Suggested Fields for Special Research Relative Artichoke, outlines proposals to develop chemicals capable of altering human behavior. It discusses drugs designed for both immediate effect, like truth serums, and long-term influence, potentially administered through food, water, alcohol, or cigarettes. Researchers also suggested such substances could be disguised in medical treatments, such as vaccines or injections. The CIA was also looking into methods beyond chemical, listing hypnosis, sensory deprivation, gases, and other psychological methods for interrogation and behavioral control. Artichoke served as a precursor to the CIA's MK-Ultra program, which later broadened mind-altering experiments to a larger scale. Many files were destroyed in the 1970s, leaving the full extent of the research and how far it progressed unknown. And yeah, we'll get back into this in just a little bit. It's, of course, just what we've talked about forever. Project Artichoke / Bluebird, Project MK-Ultra, Project Monarch, the Monarch Protocol. These things are all well understood by people who have studied this. After all, most of it came out in the church hearings in the 1970s. We'll get back into this. It's good to see the mainstream media reporting on it. Perhaps we can provide some insight into what's actually going on. Meanwhile, DOJ withheld Epstein files related to accusations about Trump. This from NPR. Department of Justice and Getty Images, the Justice Department has withheld some Epstein files related to allegations that President Trump sexually abused a minor, and NPR investigation finds. It also removed some documents from the public database where accusations against Jeffrey Epstein also mention Trump. Some files have not been made public, despite a law mandating their release. These include what appear to be more than 50 pages of FBI interviews, as well as notes from conversations with a woman who accused Trump of sexual abuse decades ago when she was a minor. NPR reviewed multiple sets of unique serial numbers appearing before and after the pages in question, stamped onto documents in the Epstein file database. FBI's case records, emails, and discovery document log show the latest tranche of documents published at the end of January. NPR investigations found dozens of pages that appear to be cataloged by the Justice Department but not shared publicly. The Justice Department declined to answer NPR's question on the record about these specific files, what's in them, and why they're not published. After publication, the Justice Department reached out to NPR, taking issue with how its responses to questions were framed. Department of Justice spokeswoman Natalie Baldessari reiterated DOJ's stance that any documents not published are privileged, duplicates, or related to ongoing federal investigation. Following NPR's reporting, the House Oversight Committee's ranking member, Representative Robert Garcia, released a statement about the missing files, saying, quote, "Yesterday, I reviewed unredacted evidence logs at the Department of Justice. Oversight documents can confirm the DOJ appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with this survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes," Garcia stated. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have already been investigating this allegation against the president. Will now open a parallel investigation into the DOJ's decision not to release these particular documents. So, there's a lot of speculation about this. I'm not sure if these are some of the documents that were originally released but then redacted or, taken down from the website. But really, at the end of the day, it just highlights the utter incoherence and incapacity and failure of the Trump administration to manage this in any way whatsoever, let alone a way that actually gets us information and makes them look honest. They just look like they're covering everything up, and maybe they are. But regardless, it's an overabundance of stupidity and just not being good at their job. Inability to perform this stuff in a normal way. It's really sort of the character of Trump's administration at this point. It's a lot of people that are not very good at their jobs, trying to cover things up, and being not very good at covering things up. And it's just kind of embarrassing, especially when you compare it to somebody like Joe Biden, who had an administration staffed almost entirely with utterly evil, traitorous, and ruthless sort of businessmen. Lawyers, they just sort of did their work, sort of put their head down, sort of got things done. They achieved things. They were competent. They were overwhelmingly competent. I remind you again, they were and still are evil and traitors and deserve to be tried for their crimes against America and probably hung if there's any justice to be had. And I'm talking specifically about Merrick Garland and Alejandro Mayorkas and others who, despite their just deliberate destruction of America on an industrial scale, were very good at their jobs. It did it very well. Achieved that stuff in record time and just sort of plodded along and went to work. And it'd be nice if we had literally anybody like that in the Trump administration. Doesn't really seem like we do. Meanwhile, Russia accuses Ukraine of seeking to acquire a nuclear weapon with the help of UK and France. Russia has accused Ukraine on Tuesday of trying to obtain a nuclear weapon with help from Britain and France, an allegation Kiev called an absurd lie. A French foreign ministry spokesperson said the allegation was blatant disinformation. A spokesperson for the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, said there's no truth to this. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky has publicly criticized Kiev's decision to give up its former Soviet nuclear arsenal in the 1990s without obtaining proper binding security guarantees. But Kiev said it does not seek to reacquire nuclear weapons and respects all international treaties. Well, look, I don't know what the truth is. All I know is that on the Ukraine side are a whole bunch of genocidal liars that have deliberately caused the death of probably over 1 million innocent people for absolutely no reason or purpose beyond their own ambitions. So I'm going to go with Russia on this one. Judging by the past actions of Keir Starmer, Volodymyr Zelensky, Emmanuel Macron, or Friedrich Merz of Germany, I think all of these people are the worst people in the world. They are weasels in suits. So I'm going to go with Russia on this one. I'm going to assume that everything the Europeans are saying are blatant lies because that's all they almost ever say. Meanwhile, Rubio, to brief lawmakers on Iran, Secretary of State Marco Rubio will brief top lawmakers Tuesday on Iran as the administration weighs possible strikes, according to two people granted anonymity to disclose the planned private meeting. The briefing will be held virtually, another person said, and will include House and Senate leadership, as well as the top membership of the House and Senate Intelligence Committees. It will take place hours after President Donald Trump is due to deliver his State of the Union address at the Capitol. An earlier State Department advisory said the briefing would happen at the White House, but it wasn't on Trump's publicly released schedule. The administration has been building up U.S. forces in the Middle East as it mulls potential military action against Iran. Though Trump hasn't indicated he's made a final decision, he warned of, quote, really bad things if a deal isn't reached and with Tehran on its nuclear enrichment program. / ballistic missile program, / domestic protest containment, just whatever the latest excuse is. And we'll get back to this because, it's obvious. People have been pointing this out for a long time, but I have a article today that just lays out all of the various excuses we've heard for going to war with Iran, none of which actually justify war, none of which would actually demand a military response. And just the sheer fact that there are so many excuses, that means that the real reason isn't being discussed. If there was a real reason to go to Iran, that's what you'd be hearing over and over again. First, it's about nuclear weapons. Now it's about ballistic missiles. Actually, because they chant that they hate the USA. And it's just like, okay, none of this is the real reason. And that is obvious. So they're treating us like fools, like absolute fools. And yet Trump will be delivering the State of the Union address tonight. It will begin around 9 p.m. Eastern time. Trump is expected to tout his administration's action and focus on the economy. At least a dozen Democrat lawmakers are opting to skip the speech and instead participate in a counter program at the National Mall. Virginia Governor Abigail Spanberger will deliver the Democratic response to Trump's speech, because of course she will. Trump faces a public that increasingly questions his priorities and expresses broad doubts about whether his policies are helping the nation, according to a CNN poll conducted by SSRS. Trump reportedly told reporters ahead of the address that if Iran does want to make a deal to avoid U.S. military strikes more than he does, but so far Tehran has been unwilling to say explicitly it won't build nuclear weapons. Which again, it's like, well, the way you've behaved, the way that America and Israel have behaved over the last 3 years, I frankly don't blame them for wanting a nuclear weapon. I think if there's one thing that's been revealed by Israel's behavior over the last 2 years, it's that having a nuclear weapon really gives you a lot of freedom of action. Really, you can do a lot of whatever the hell you want as long as you are able to wield nuclear blackmail against anybody trying to stop you. I mean, there's a reason that Nicolas Maduro was scooped up, but somebody like, Kim Jong-il isn't, right? Because one's nuclear weapons, the other doesn't. That's your Daily Dispatch, brought to you, of course, by thealexjonesstore.com. We've got two major discounts happening right now on Methylene Blue and Methylene Red. Methylene Blue is 25% off, Methylene Red 50% off. And get them together to maximize their power. And these are available, of course, only at thealexjonesstore.com. Supplies will not last. Globalists, in all of their machinations, they really need to be fog and distraction and depression, absolutely nothing else. And you combine that with ultra USA. People in the Epstein list would love if we just sort of let it. But it's also headlines, and since it's been released 2 weeks in importance, not only continue to talk, obviously, major topic of conversation hasn't seen as. Not only is it still obviously been 3 weeks, 2 weeks in importance at all been 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks now that it's been since it's been released. Not only is it obviously still dominating headlines and in crazy ways, but it's also incumbent on us. Like, we have to make sure that this stays at the top of our attention, because the people in the Epstein list would love if we just sort of let it fall to the wayside, start focusing on other stuff. But we're not going to do that. We're going to keep bringing it up until these people are treated in the way that they should be. And we'll get to that in just a second. Let's go to clip 28 here. This is Representative Thomas Massie. On the floor of the Congress, expressing his frustration with the Trump DOJ and the blatant lies they keep telling to the American people. Go to clip 28 here.
Congress created the Department of Justice, Congress funds the Department of Justice, and Congress is responsible for the oversight of the Department of Justice. When will we see justice? I'll tell you what I've not seen. I've not seen any arrests from the revelations in the Epstein files, over 3 million documents describing horrible things, describing unspeakable things, so much of it redacted. Over 24 people have resigned, CEOs, members of government worldwide, but I haven't seen any arrests or investigations here in the United States from this Department of Justice. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, who has since been stripped of his royal titles due to his affiliation with Jeffrey Epstein, has been arrested. Peter Mandelson, who previously served as UK's ambassador to the United States, resigned in disgrace from United Kingdom's House of Lords and the Labour Party, and he's been arrested. Former Prime Minister of Norway, Torbjorn Jagland, has been charged. But we don't see any charges, arrests, or investigations in the United States. What do we see? We see our FBI director celebrating in the locker room at the Olympics overseas. It's fine to be proud of this country, but we should be proud of this country because we have a system of justice that works. And yet we do not. Who are the men that should be investigated? I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner. Why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents in a child sex trafficking case and then tell him, according to him, that they had no questions for him? Why is that? Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the DOJ and the FBI to disclose to us their internal memos and emails about how they made those decisions, whether to prosecute or not prosecute. Yet they have not delivered those memos. And we still don't have the memos and documents and emails from 2008 to explain why Jeffrey Epstein was given such a light sentence in what would have been
He just gave 3 names. Was that 4? Man, look. Hold on.
open and shut case was given about how the guy took disclose to us their questions for him. Tell him, according to him, FBI list him as a co-conspirator. It's right there in the files. Why do you see that this man needs to be and that should be investigated? I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner. Why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents? Why is he not being of terrible things investigated? Jess Staley, to see that this man, you don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused. This man, the man that should be investigated. I'll name them right here. Leon Black. You don't even have to see past the redactions to see that this man needs to be investigated. Jess Staley, accused of terrible things. It's right there in the files. Why is he not being investigated? And Leslie Wexner. Why did the FBI list him as a co-conspirator in their own documents in a child sex trafficking case and then tell him, according to him, that they had no questions for him? Why is that? Well, the Epstein Files Transparency Act requires the DOJ and the FBI to disclose to us their internal memos and emails about how they made those decisions, whether to prosecute or not prosecute. Yet they have not delivered those memos. And we still don't have the memos and documents and emails from 2008 to explain why Jeffrey Epstein was given such a light sentence in what would have been an open and shut case of child sex trafficking.
Leon Black, Jess Daly, Leslie Wexler. Who are these people? He just put that on record in Congress. Like, you don't want to unredact this shit. I'll speak names on the Congress floor. How about that? On the congressional floor. Ooh, they feeling. Hey, he might get JFK. I don't know.
Which allowed him to go back and recommit these terrible crimes, create hundreds of more victims, and ensnare so many other people in his conspiracy. Where are those documents that describe those decisions? We need justice. We want the Department of Justice to get to work, and that's what they need to do now.
Absolutely. Very powerful stuff from Thomas Massie. I agree with him completely. And of course, they're all in on it, right? They're all in on it. Do you understand? Like the media, they're all in on it. The royal family, they're all in on it. The government of the UK, all in on it. The US, the Congress, these intelligence agencies, absolutely 100% in on it. So they're all incentivized not to have this explosive material come out. The good news is we don't need any of them. We do need the Department of Justice to listen to the Congress. We do need people like Thomas Massie wielding his power in the legislature effectively and in accordance with the will of the American people. But we don't actually need the mainstream media to cover this. We don't actually need the intelligence agencies to tell us what is obvious to our own eyes. And if we did need that, if
Hey man, they gave me a copyright strike for that off-grid living with them Hebrews. Janky.
if you did require such a thing, then, well, here's Nancy Mace, a congresswoman who's had an opportunity to look at the unredacted files, and she says it in no uncertain words. Yeah, he was an intelligence agency, and the intelligence agencies are protecting themselves by withholding information. Let's watch.
Do you think there will be arrests in America?
No, I don't. I have no confidence in our justice system. I think it's a system of injustice. I think the way that these victims and others get justice are seeing people, if they're not going to go to jail, be removed from boards, be publicly shamed out of civil society, lose their companies. You're starting to see some of that. The dominoes are falling, but they're not falling fast enough. And that's why I'm really intent on getting all the files out there. I don't believe there's any more investigation. There are not going to be any more indictments because I believe Epstein was an intel asset, maybe of one or multiple nations. And that's why our country protected him and the information and videos and audio that he had on other world leaders. But until people go to jail, people want justice. And that's the only way we're going to get it right now.
So it's up to us. So it sounds like it's up to us. And of course it is, because the people involved are the ones pulling the string and have been for decades, because this is an intergenerational thing. And obviously Robert Maxwell, super spy, handed off his operation to his daughter, Ghislaine Maxwell, whose sisters were deeply involved with all of this sort of stuff. Of course, the intergenerational aspect involves not only those participating in Jeffrey Epstein's international pedophile cabal, but also those tasked with taking it down, like the fine patriots at the Southern District of New York, you know, people like Maureen Comey, James Comey's daughter, or people like the guy who wrote this article. The Epstein file should have never been released. This is an opinion article from the New York Times called "The Epstein file should have never been released." Before we get into the argument that this guy is making, maybe you should know who he is. The author of this article is Daniel Richman. He is a law professor at Columbia University and a former federal prosecutor in the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Southern District of New York. No wonder the pedophiles aren't being prosecuted. Not only that, his name might strike a bell, because this is the very man that James Comey was leaking to. When it was discovered that he was sending information to a colleague that was then sending it to media outlets, leaking information with one step removed, this was the guy he was leaking to. So this guy, co-worker with Maureen Comey, who was, of course, involved in the Epstein cover-up the second time he was arrested, wrote an article for the New York Times called "The Epstein file should have never been released." Gee, I wonder if he had any, personal reason to say that. It's pretty interesting, if you ask me. And I don't even get what his argument is. I don't know. It's basically just like, this is breaking the rule of law, I guess. But it's like, obviously, there is no rule of law. Obviously, the release of these documents is a gigantic expose revealing that the rule of law literally doesn't exist for a certain class of people who were friends with Jeffrey Epstein, because they're constantly committing crimes and being open about it and then talking about how they're going to get away with it and communicating with the very people that would be in charge of holding them to account. Duh. I'm sorry. But obviously, the people involved wouldn't want that revealed. But obviously, the people who are tasked with going after the criminals, who are in fact friends with and in bed with the criminals, aren't going to do that, and then are going to tell you it's really bad for the rule of law. It's bad for the, our system. It's an attack against it's practically an insurrection. It's January 6th all over again. I can't believe these radical, MAGA anti-Semites are trying to tear down our beautiful and necessary temples of democracy. This is the War Room. We'll cover on with Iran, as there's some very interesting developments. In fact, I just broke from Press TV. Iran has launched its first ballistic missile capable ship vessel. That's interesting. So we'll have to get into that here in just a second, but a few more interesting notes when it comes to Jeffrey Epstein. You have yet another major consequence in Europe, despite America not seemingly being able to do anything about what's been revealed in the Epstein files. UK government remains on the brink of collapse. They're arresting Peter Mandelson and the former prince. Now you have this. Mr. Human Rights, ex-Norwegian Prime Minister Jagland, hospitalized from attempted suicide after being charged over the Epstein ties. See, this is correct. This is good. This is what we should... Everyone in the Epstein file should be attempting suicide. That's the goal here, okay? Not really. I really wish they would just come clean and tell us what's really going on, and then we could forgive them and embrace them as whistleblowers, but suicide is a great option too. MAID, medically assisted in, punishment or whatever. MAID. And I'm not kidding. And by the way, it's not a joke. I'm glad this happened. I'm a loving person, but in absence of a system of justice actually doing what it should to punish these people, punishing themselves is a great alternative. Them taking it into their own hands to apply the duly and lawfully prescribed punishment for their crimes. It saves us money. We don't have to go through a trial. Just jump straight to the last step. I love it. It's very efficient, very Norwegian of them. Former Norwegian Prime Minister Thorbjorn Jagland was reportedly hospitalized this week following a failed suicide attempt just days after he was formally charged with aggravated corruption, where he faces a 10-year prison sentence over his ties to globalist pedo Jeffrey Epstein, according to Norwegian news outlet I Nyheter. Jagland, who was labeled a great friend and Mr. Human Rights by Epstein, was also the chair of the Norwegian Nobel Committee, served as Secretary General of the Council of Europe, and led the controversial decision to award the Nobel Peace Prize to President Barack Obama in 2009, where he delivered the presentation speech for the ceremony. Norwegian news outlets were reportedly asked to refrain from reporting on the suicide attempt, but the OSINT platform Facebook's network and others published the story. Regarding the investigation into his Epstein connection, the European Conservative reported Norwegian police said on Thursday, February 12th, they have searched the properties belonging to former Prime Minister Thorbjørn Jagland following the launch of an anti-corruption probe over his dealings with U.S. sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Jagland is being investigated after documents released by the U.S. Justice Department in January suggested that he and or his family stayed or vacationed with Epstein between 2011 and 2018. Yeah, maybe we need to enlist the Europeans. Maybe we need some sort of Nuremberg-style international court. Maybe that's what we need, because obviously the American government is far too involved in this corruption to ever do anything about it. The Europeans, to my ongoing shock and bemusement, are actually holding their leadership to account. Amazing. At the same time that they're, trying to delete all of the data in the data banks about the rape gangs that have plagued Britain for several decades. I don't get it. I don't understand what's motivating them. They are constantly engaged in the most suicidal and corrupt behavior you could ever imagine. But in this case, they're actually holding people to account and investigating claims made in the Epstein files. This is what we need. I don't know. How about our judges that are good can go over there and deport everybody, and then all their judges that are actually holding the elite to account can come over here and arrest all the Epstein people? I don't know what we need to do here, but I guess if they just want to kill themselves, that's fine. I guess at the end of the day, that is fine with me. So great, do that. Because it's getting very frustrating. It's getting very frustrating knowing that absolutely nothing is happening to all these people, and that this information is not new. It's only to us. Yeah, that's him on the left, handing out the Nobel Peace Prize to Barack Obama. Not a surprise. They're all in on it, and there's Obama being a good little puppet for them. Wonderful. Meanwhile, CBS News uncovers a bombshell 69-page DEA memo hidden in the Epstein files detailing a 5-year federal probe into Jeffrey Epstein for wire transfers linked to, quote, illicit drug and or prostitution activities in the U.S. Virgin Islands and New York. This is from the Epstein files on X, at the Epstein files. Launched in 2010 and still ongoing in 2015, it tracked around $50 million in shady transfers to accounts in Switzerland, France, Cayman Islands, and New York. The memo names 14 other redacted targets. Shocker. It exposes new Epstein-linked probes, ICE investigations in West Palm Beach, Las Vegas, and Paris, plus an FBI case from 2006 active through 2015. An insane twist, SDNY prosecutors who nabbed Epstein in 2019 claimed they never knew about this DEA investigation. The web just got deeper. And you just think about, just try to, not pay taxes on a gift to your grandchild and see how effective the U.S. government is at tracking down this type of stuff. When it comes to Epstein, they'll just monitor the situation. They'll just watch for year over year. It's tens of millions of dollars is, flitted between illegal or anonymous bank accounts and paying for children. They just watch, they monitor, they investigate. We really got to gather all this data. You don't understand how complicated these cases are. You don't understand what goes in to, getting these guys. If we don't do this right, it's like, you're just covering up. You're just covering up for them. What are you talking about? Stop treating us like fools. This is from Matt Bracken. Yeah, Jeffrey Epstein was the subject of a DEA probe that spanned 5 years, heavily redacted documents reveal. Again, at least 5 years. That was 5 years after he was initially busted for them. They knew what he was doing the entire time. I don't know why they were pretending to investigate him for that period, but not acting on it and allowing God only knows how many people to be victimized or how many crazy global scams to be weaponized by this guy. So this is from Matt Bracken. He says, I put this in easy to read format so you can share it with your normie friends. And it's a collection of revelations from the Epstein files. It says this. In February 2016, Jeffrey Epstein wrote an email to Peter Thiel, co-founder of PayPal and Palantir, with a sentence that should have made the front page of every newspaper in the Western world. As you probably know, I represent the Rothschilds. The sentence in the Epstein files. This sentence is in the Epstein files. It's from Epstein himself. It's an official document. The United States Department of Justice and the mainstream media press treated it as it would a footnote about the weather in Bermuda. Yeah, you mentioned the Rothschilds, but who cares? The name Rothschild appears nearly 12,000 times across the 3.8 million pages released in January 2026. 12,000 times. By comparison, Clinton appears at a significantly lower frequency, but in a media ecosystem that Chomsky helped build, repeating the name of Rothschild in an investigative context is automatically reclassified as conspiratorial delusion. Convenient when yours is the most cited name in the largest child sex trafficking scandal in modern history. Les Wexner, the billionaire founder of Victoria's Secret and Epstein's largest known benefactor, testified under oath before the House Oversight Committee on February 18, 2026. Asked about the credentials that led him to entrust Epstein with his full power of attorney over his finances, he answered plainly his personal work for the Rothschild family in France. He added, quote, specifically, I spoke to Elie de Rothschild. He represented their whole family. Under oath before the United States Congress, Wexner's attorney was caught whispering to his client on hot mic, I'll effing kill you if you answer another question with more than 5 words. Desperation has recognizable symptoms. The documents confirm what Wexner revealed in October 2015. A Southern Trust Company, Inc., chaired by Epstein, based in the Virgin Islands, entered a $25 million contract with Edmund de Rothschild Holding SA. The subject, risk analysis and application of certain algorithms, $25 million for a convicted child sex offender to run algorithms for the wealthiest family in Europe. If this were a TV script, no studio would buy it for lack of plausibility. Ariane de Rothschild, CEO of Edmund de Rothschild's group since 2023, exchanged emails with Epstein over a dozen times per month The Wall Street Journal confirmed in 2023 that she met with him in person more than a dozen times after his conviction. The bank's initial defense was to deny any contact. Later, they admitted the meeting took place as part of her normal duties. Normal duties apparently include regular meetings with convicted pedophiles. In 2014, Epstein wrote to Arian, quote, "The coup in Ukraine should provide many opportunities." Minnie, a financial manager convicted of child sexual exploitation, discussing geopolitical opportunities with the heiress of a $236 billion banking empire. That's a massive undercount. This should have been front-page news. It became editorial silence. Across the Atlantic, WikiLeaks emails had already exposed the relationship between Hillary Clinton and Lynn Forther Rothschild. In September 2010, Clinton, then Secretary of State, wrote to Lady de Rothschild, apologizing for having pulled Tony Blair away from a private engagement with the Rothschilds in Aspen to attend Middle East negotiations. The phrase is verbatim, quote, "Let me know what penance I owe you." The Secretary of State of the world's greatest power asking penance of a private citizen. In January 2015, before Hillary announced her candidacy, Lynn was already drafting her economic policy in emails to aide Cheryl Mills. "We need a draft economic message for Hillary. Whoever runs American politics is not necessarily on the ballot." Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's former attorney and Harvard professor emeritus, declared publicly in 2019, quote, I was introduced to Epstein by Lady Lynn Rothschild. She introduced Epstein to Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew. The connector between the pedophile and two of the most powerful men on the planet had a surname, and that surname appears 12,000 times in the files. You really have to understand, I mean, really the greatest, you talk about the greatest trick the devil ever pulled. This is it right here, where it says this name, Rothschild, in an investigative context, automatically reclassifies you as a conspiratorial delusion. You understand what it took to accomplish that, to achieve that? I don't even know if I can explain to you what this is saying. The Rothschilds are so deeply involved in so many conspiracies that by virtue of their overwhelming presence, it's not believed when they're included in conspiracies. It doesn't make sense, really, but that is what's happening. Is that if you point out the Rothschilds are a part of something, it becomes, oh, great, you might as well be talking about the reptilians, right? You might as well be wearing a tinfoil hat and talking about Bigfoot, because, the classic conspiracy of the Rothschilds. But if you remember, one of my favorite documents of all time that I've spent hours and hours on in the last couple of years, I like called the Eagle 2 document, and it is a novel-like description of the foundation of the global shadow government. And what it talks about is supposedly it's a leaked document that was compiled for Senator Ted Kennedy in the 80s, and it's from the FBI reporting on the CIA's clandestine drug running operation, how it got started during Vietnam and how it led to the overthrow of the Japanese government. That's another thing people are pointing out, because there's been this big upheaval in the Japanese government recently, that the leading party who's still in power, and it's Shinzo Abe's party and everything, the LDP, Liberal Democratic Party of Japan, was founded incontrovertibly, it's on their Wikipedia page, they were founded by the CIA in the 1950s, and they have held control in Japan for 75% of the intervening time. That's a side note. It's just worth it to point out how massive, all-encompassing and wide-ranging this operation was. They literally, to cover up the drug running they were doing, they were overthrowing the government of Japan, amongst other things. But as you read this and you learn about how George H.W. Bush, and it was called the Council of Five, and it was heads of the CIA, future heads of the CIA, William Colby, the Phoenix program, murdering tens of thousands of so-called dissidents, aka local people in Southeast Asia that were not wanting to sell drugs for the American army to the American servicemen, so they all came back addicted to heroin. It's very wide-ranging and complicated conspiracy, but at the end of it all, they basically say, we ran into some trouble, there were some leaks, there was some, touch-and-go moments here or there, and U.S. Congress started looking into it. Frank Church, amongst others, started notice. This was the beginning of Iran-Contra and all of that. And it says a couple of things happened. For one thing, it said that George H.W. Bush was put as head of the CIA specifically to remove all of this information, to hide all of the files. He was in on it from the beginning. They were starting to look into it. They needed somebody in there to burn the documents, knowing which ones to burn, and he did that very successfully. But then they say that the entire operation has been moved away from the CIA, where it was originally created, masterminded, and started. But the operation, the Eagle 2 operation, was moved to a little house in Paris under the control of the Rothschilds. And it says in this document who represent the real shadow power of the world. Now, that was compiled in the 1980s, and it just goes to show the Rothschilds run the world, and have for the last 50 years at least. But obviously, you don't get to the point where you're running black ops, Iran-Contra style global weapons and drug trades. You don't start there, right? It's a long and slow build-up to there. And of course, the long and slow build-up began all the way back in the early 1800s, following victory at Waterloo. You can even take it back further to the late 1700s, and the creation of the Rothschild banks throughout Europe. But they just operate like a nobility. It's not hard to figure out how this works. People marry into the family marries distant cousins to keep the money in the family, and it's just a family operation. And they're like royalty. They inherit the operation. They inherit the trillions and trillions of dollars that the Rothschilds control. And they sit at the top of the pyramid. Below them sits Vanguard and BlackRock and State Street. Below them sit all the major, corporations, name brands, Walmart and Coca-Cola and all that. And then under them is all. So it is a pyramid structure, and at the top sit Rothschilds. Jeffrey Epstein was one of their agents. When you talk about, did he work for Israel? Did he work for America? Did he work for the CIA? He was an intelligence agent in some regard. Sure, he was used by both of those intelligence agencies, probably as well as MI6 or MI5. But at the end of the day, his boss was the Rothschilds. And the Rothschilds, being the founders of the State of Israel, being the progenitors of that entire nation state, operate as a country unto themselves, right? They operate with the impunity and the immunity of diplomats wherever they go, of heads of state, even though nobody elected them, nobody holds them to account, and most of their power is exercised in total secrecy until a big reveal like this comes out. So it's the Rothschilds at the end of the day, and it's kind of sickening how much of the world they control when you really look into it. And the real sickening part is that you have all of this European history that they've systematically gathered unto themselves. They own like the most castles in Europe. Every other castle in Europe is just owned by a Rothschild. And so, when you look on these castles as the national inheritance of the people of Germany or Czechia or wherever else, no, it was captured, bought out using money they summoned out of thin air, or economic manipulation. That's only legal in the vaguest sense. One way or another, by hook and crook, they swindled Europe out of its entire inheritance, and still to this day operate as an untouchable noble class. Okay, with more money than you'll ever know or I'll ever know. They say $286 billion. Nothing. That's a pittance. These people are worth trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. And they use those trillions of dollars to fund pedophile blackmail networks, control governments. Yeah, you can go all the way back to, who got us into the First World War? Well, it was the Balfour Declaration, Lord Rothschild. Who was the first person to report that the USS Maine had exploded in the Cuban harbor? It was a Rothschild. You have this family that is literally the engine behind Iran-Contra, the drug running there, behind the State of Israel, the creation of the terror gangs that created that country, and then, of course, the country itself, the Balfour Declaration, where the Rothschild agreed to their vast network and influence to change the media landscape in America, to get America into the First World War on behalf of England. And they're proud of this. This isn't even conspiracy. It's not even like I'm speculating. You can just go through a list of publicly acknowledged contributions to humanity by the Rothschilds, and it's cabals of pedophiles. It's starting practically every war you care to mention. Going again all the way back to U.S.-Spanish War, right? And there's them with the Rockefeller. 2 peas in a pod. Just understand what we're dealing with here when we talk about the Epstein files. It's amazing because I really don't want us to underestimate the level of awakening that's happening here. I go out of my way to talk to normies. I go out of my way to talk to people, keep up friendships or relationships with people that don't care about politics. Because when something like this happens, I got to test the water. I got to know. We all know all this. Everybody who follows me on Twitter, and I follow on Twitter, we're delving into this. What's the average normie think? Turns out the average normie is actually getting a lot of this. And again, it's like I was talking to somebody this weekend, and it was like, well, it's been a lot of, it's been very validating for us, right? We've been really validated. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, a global pedophile satanic blackmail ring running the world. That's kind of what we're all about. Like, I guess that is what's happening here. And it's like, yeah, that's what's happening here. Yes, it is a global pedophile vampire ring of evil. It is a cabal of psychopaths ruling the world. And they are engaged in the most evil you could possibly imagine. You think it's hard for them to torture and kill a baby to death to get its adrenochrome when they're sending 1 million Ukrainians to die and don't even think twice about it? No, you're dealing with generations of psychopaths passing their psychopathy onto their children, along with billion-dollar fortunes. And they're engaged in subversion and manipulation in every possible way you can imagine. From what we see on TV, what's composed in our video games, what clothes are popular, to just in general the, progressive generation of American society in terms of decency and Christian attitudes, things like Victoria's Secret. It's like normal for us. Do you know how crazy it was for there to be an underwear store? It's why it's called Victoria's Secret, just because it's nobody talked about that. You weren't supposed to nobody's going to advertise underwear. You didn't do that type of thing. Certainly weren't going to show pictures of women in their underwear. And Victoria's Secret was actually, we are going to do that, and we're going to irrevocably change the perception of Americans in the process. And who was behind that? It was this very same cabal. So you really can't overestimate the negative, the malicious influence that 100 people have had. You take the Rothschilds, you take their descendants and their cousins, and then people like Jeffrey Epstein, Wes Wexner, who were involved. There's 100 people, and it's just every war, every denigration of American society. It's all from them, and it's all on purpose. And they talk about the effects that they're having in the emails, where they talk about, nobody's going to overthrow us because they're all distracted by football. They say that. Yes, we've been saying it for decades because it's been obvious to anybody paying attention, but hits a little bit harder when it's the very people engaged in it bragging about its efficacy. It just goes on and on. Any of this, Jeffrey Epstein, science activist, backs the largest Catholic organization in the U.S. Virgin Islands. This is a story from back in 2012 when they're celebrating the generous donations from philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein to keep up the Catholic Charities of the Virgin Islands, which happens to be, by the way, one of the main places that the Catholic Church would send its priests after they were busted. The whole thing about the Catholic Church harboring pedophiles was that if they got reports of priests engaged in that sort of activity, instead of punishing them or turning them over to the cops, they would just move them somewhere else so their reputation didn't follow them and they could just do it all over again. One of their favorite places to send Catholic priests engaged in this stuff was to the Virgin Islands, where they were living in a place and fed by charities funded by Jeffrey Epstein, prolific and notorious child predator. War room. We're going to get into what's going on with Iran here in just a second, but I'll go to a very powerful video of a Chicago resident standing up to the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, and basically just holding him to task for lying to the people of Chicago over and over. This is a beautiful thing. I'm seeing more and more stuff like this, so I just want to celebrate and spread it. Let's watch.
First, I actually just want to apologize on behalf of Brandon Johnson for ignoring the young lady that was just speaking there, for speaking for the animals' rights. And let me continue here. I was watching one of your recent videos of you saying that you never told a lie. So you raised property taxes when you promised you wouldn't. You promised that crime would go down when it's not. Reports of crime is down, though, but not crime within itself. I just want to let everybody know that. Crime itself is not down. Nobody voted for you to fund illegal migrants, Brandon Johnson, and we know this is happening because Melissa Hortman, a Democrat in Minnesota, voted against funding for illegal migrants, the only Democrat, by the way, and she was murdered for it. She was murdered actually by someone who's appointed by Tim Walz, sir. So I just want you guys to think about that as well. So we know this is happening, which is the main reason why the president is withholding federal funds in Chicago, because he is afraid that you will fund illegal migrants. And honestly, I'm afraid that you'll do that too. How are you going to allow 9 janitors to be fired when you have 150 police detail and that costs you $22 million a year? You can't cut a few cops to save a few jobs? You mean to tell me your safety is that important, Brandon Johnson? Absolutely disgraceful. Instead, you want to hang out with a China-loving, dog-shocking communist like Hassan Piker. Why are you streaming, dude? People are out here dying. I'm serious. You was just on 79th, right? You saw 24 shots get let off. People are dying out here. You don't got time to stream. Do you understand that? And I'm being serious, dude. Absolutely disgraceful. You want to defund the police, and your executive order means nothing. You cannot hold federal agents accountable, bro. It's called supremacy clause. That means federal law is the highest law of the land, okay? The executive order that you signed, that was a waste of time and ink, if I'm being honest with you. So we are American patriots. We are Chicago patriots. How many people have to die because of your poor leadership? Watchdogs has recently found that we are actually $41.1 billion of debt. It's not even 1.5. So where is all the money going, Mr. Brandon Johnson? We want to know that. And I know it's Black History Month, ladies and gentlemen, but Brandon Johnson, you got to stop being racist, dude. Like, this is a problem, man. Everybody is people. We all shed red blood. I understand that, tribalism is a thing and stuff like that, but we are all the same in the eyes of God, Brandon Johnson. Stop.
Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant and powerful. And again, just like obvious to anybody that's paying attention, that the glaring hypocrisy of the Democrat government. He's got 150 police officers for his personal detail, but then they're cutting janitors' jobs to save money. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. And I love that he called out Hassan Abi. What do you call him? Or Hassan, whatever his name is. Chank's nephew. We know him as Chank's nephew. China-loving, dog-abusing Hassan. Yeah. So can we just, what do we need to do? What do we need to do as Americans who agree on all of this? What do we need to do to free ourselves from these people? I'm not talking about left or right. I'm talking about what do we as Americans, me and that dude, I don't care what else we disagree with. We're clearly on the same page of the abject corruption of the political system and the existential need to free ourselves from it. What can we do to come together? What can we do to free ourselves from these people? Because everybody who's paying attention knows that this is the case, that guy's exactly right. Brandon Johnson is a despicable liar. This is The War Room. I'm your host, Harrison Smith. Let's brief lawmakers on Iran, shall we? Rubio to brief lawmakers on Iran. Secretary of State Marco Rubio will brief top lawmakers today, on Iran as the administration weighs possible strikes, according to 2 people granted anonymity to disclose the planned private meeting. The briefing will be held virtually, another person said, and will include House and Senate leadership, as well as top members of the House and Intelligence Committee. So it will take place hours before President Trump is due to deliver his State of the Union speech at the Capitol. An earlier State Department advisory said the briefing would happen at the White House, but it was not on Trump's publicly released schedule. The administration has been building up U.S. forces in the Middle East as it molds potential military action against Iran. Although Trump has not indicated he's made a final decision, he has warned of, quote, really bad things if a deal isn't reached with Tehran on its nuclear enrichment program. Trump's comments have sparked calls from some lawmakers to force a vote on a resolution that would require congressional authorization before the president could order the use of force against Iran. Representatives Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie had initially planned to force such a vote this week, but leadership now expects that to be delayed until next week or later, according to 3 people granted anonymity to discuss the scheduling. And of course, he is going to be giving a State of the Union tonight, and things are a little bit different than they were, as Politico notes. A defensive posture. Trump speaks to Congress on shakier ground than last year. But if I had to guess, if I had to speculate, I'd say, he's going to receive half of the room's going to applaud whenever he talks about tariffs, half the room's going to applaud whenever he talks about illegal immigration, and then the whole room is going to applaud when he talks about war with Iran. When he talks about the danger of Iran. I have a feeling it's going to be the only time in the entire State of the Union where he gets full support from both sides of the aisle in all branches of government, because that's just how sick and retarded our entire system has become. 7 experts on the risk of wider war with Iran. This is from Politico. As the threat of U.S. strikes intensify, our experts weigh the risks of escalation. What Trump will not do is commit U.S. ground troops, is what they say, and that's always been my red line, and it's always been Trump's actions are in accordance to that. He doesn't want, boots on the ground either. He's willing to do limited strikes, but I don't think he's exactly excited to have American servicemen die on his watch. And he's looking for a way to get this done without that possibility, but I don't think that's the case, especially the way that Iran is signaling it's prepared to respond. I mean, it has said that all American everything, all resources, everything in the Middle East is on the table. Not just, you launched from there, so we'll attack there, but you launch from anywhere, we attack you anywhere. You also have China sending Iran aircraft carrier killing missiles, supersonic weapons that can zigzag in moments before impact, pose game-changing risk to U.S. forces. They also just launched their first ballistic missile launching vessel. So how's that going to work? So how are you going to attack them? How are you going to decapitate Iran without massive, unstoppable risk to American servicemen? I don't think you can. I really don't think you can. In the eight months since the Trump administration bombed in Iranian nuclear sites, the world has changed, and President Trump seems emboldened. He faced little blowback after his previous attack on Iran, and he's riding high after snatching Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. Now Trump is amping up the pressure on Tehran to give up its nuclear program by deploying huge collections of fighter jets and warships in the Middle East, not seen since the Iraq War. If negotiations fail, Trump's threatening a massive attack with the pursuit of regime change a possibility. Last year, we asked a series of experts to weigh in on how an attack on Iran might unfold. We've gone back to them to see if, what we think of Trump's latest moves. The general consensus is that Trump may be about to take risks that are far less predictable and far more deadly than his previous gambits to reshape the globe. Ryan Crocker, a distinguished chair in diplomacy and security at RAND, basically says there will be no chickening out this time, saying it's highly unlikely that Iran will meet U.S. demands on zero enrichment, ballistic missiles, and/or support for proxy forces. Tehran sees these as crucial underpinnings of regime legitimacy. To meet Washington's conditions would effectively mean the end of the Islamic Republic, which is why this is so stupid. It's literally a violation of one of the first rules of war from Sun Tzu. You want to give your enemy an out. You want to give your enemy a way to escape, because if their backs against the wall, they fight a lot harder. So what they've done is basically backed Iran up against a wall and said either surrender everything, disarm yourself, or we're going to go to war. And so Iran is only incentivized to fight as hard as they possibly can. There's no incentive to negotiate. There's no incentive to trust the Trump administration whatsoever. So strategically, it's very stupid. The massive buildup of U.S. forces cannot be sustained indefinitely. There will not be a taco, Trump always chickens out moment this time. In the absence of an agreement, President Donald Trump will take action, probably limited in the first instance, in an effort to coerce Iran into an agreement. When that doesn't work, and it won't, Trump will expand operations in an effort to decapitate the regime, including clerical and military leadership. This will require precise intelligence, which may be harder to obtain than it was in June. It's important that initial strikes comprehensively target Iran's missile capabilities. If Iran can, they will use them against U.S. allies and assets in the region, as well as Israel. What Trump will not do is commit U.S. ground forces. In the event of regime decapitation, this means U.S. will have no ability to control subsequent events. It's impossible to predict what will happen next. What we say with confidence is that we will not see the emergence of a secular democracy led by the sons of the Shah. Far more likely would be the seizure of power by unknown military officers and massive internal violence. President Trump operates without either clear objectives or strategy, according to Jonathan Panikoff, the unfortunate name. Dennis Ross says Trump is effectively playing chicken before President Donald Trump launched his strikes into the Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan nuclear sites and most important nuclear facilities infrastructure in Iran. I predicted that if he attacked only in a limited way, the conflict would be contained, but if the attack was wider and seen as being about regime change, it would escalate and not be containable. Though we've attacked all three sites, Trump's intent was limited to the nuclear program, and the Iranians responded much in the way they had to the killing of Qasem Soleimani. They signaled what they would do in advance of attacking a dead base, letting U.S. limit the damage and conveying the no interest in escalation. So is that lesson President Trump has learned? You can use force in a limited way for a limited objective, and Iran will respond in kind. And perhaps, but it is different this time. And it seems like we are betting a lot on the, I don't want to say cowardice of Iran, but it's kind of that. It's kind of that. And again, you can sort of look at this two ways. In one way, if I was Iran, I don't know how you can look at the trajectory that rather Israel and America has been on for the last couple of years and not see the inevitability of an attack on Iran. It's going to happen at some point. It did already happen in June, but it's only going to, they're not going to be satisfied until all of Iran is in abject chaos, or the Shah is returned to power and has to run a brutal tyranny to maintain that power. It's going to come. It's going to happen. If I was Iran, I probably would have attacked probably when they were going after Venezuela. Probably when they went after Nicolas Maduro, I would have been all right, now's the time. The U.S. Navy isn't hanging around. They don't have a ton of focus here. Now it's time to attack. Now we have all of these forces in the Middle East. It's going to be a hell of a lot harder to respond, but also a hell of a lot of targets to hit, so they'll be able to do a lot more damage to our resources in the area this time. So I don't know, maybe it's a sort of either or situation, but it seems like there's a lot riding on the fact that not going to be the first to attack. And so far they haven't been, but I really don't understand why not. I don't know. Strategically, I don't understand what they're waiting for, but I can only hope that it's because the talks are working in their favor. But the Trump team is not making it easy for themselves. Trump team on damage control after Huckabee's comments on Israel. Senior administration officials have called Arab officials to explain that a Huckabee comment that Israel can control the Middle East did not signal a policy shift. Well, no. That is the policy, but that's always been the policy. That wasn't a shift. It was just said out loud for the first time. That was the mistake. This does not represent a policy shift. It's like, yeah, we know. Senior Trump administration officials have called around to several Arab countries in recent days to mollify their concerns. Right after Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee claimed Israel has the right to control much of the Middle East, in the discussions, officials, including Deputy Secretary of State Chris Landau, Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs Alison Hooker, and others, have explained to concerned countries that Huckabee's assertion in a podcast interview with Tucker Carlson reflects his personal views and is not a shift in administration policy. According to 3 people familiar with the outreach who were granted anonymity to discuss sensitive diplomatic discussions, the State Department itself did not respond to a request to comment. Huckabee's interview has sparked outrage among Arab and Muslim countries, and his comments were a significant departure from the Trump administration's stance on Israeli sovereignty. President Donald Trump has promised Arab and Muslim leaders he would not let Israel annex the West Bank, but of course they are annexing the West Bank. Again, it's like our relationship with Israel just screws us at every level, constantly. Why we're even talking about this stuff is because it benefits Israel. But then it's like we want to promise them things, and we don't have the ability to fulfill those promises because Israel acts with complete impunity and complete disregard for America's demands. I mean, Donald Trump has said publicly, in no uncertain terms, they will not annex the West Bank. What is Israel doing? Annexing the West Bank. So what do you think it looks like when Trump tells Iran, Israel will not attack you if you agree to this? The Iranian people are thinking, you don't have a say in that. You are not able to control what Israel's doing. You can't promise us that because you have no way to make sure it's true. Because you're either incapable or unwilling to ever limit the actions of Israel. So we can't negotiate because of our relationship with Israel. We can't make promises to, protect people that we're negotiating with because Israel will just kill them. We don't do anything about it. We can't even stop them from annexing the West Bank, which is in just flagrant violation of human rights across the board and international treaties and the laws of war and basic decency and their promises to support and protect Christians that they constantly reiterate in an effort to trick evangelicals into thinking they're the good guys. It's like, what's the benefit again? What are we getting out of this? Just screwed over and made to look like fools? Okay, great. U.S.-Iran talks are expected to happen Friday if Iran sends nuclear proposal soon. U.S. and Iranian negotiators are expected to meet in Geneva on Thursday to discuss a detailed Iranian proposal for a nuclear deal. A senior U.S. official told Axios on Sunday morning the Trump administration expects to receive the proposal by today, Tuesday. The current diplomatic push is likely the last chance President Trump will give Iran for launching a massive U.S.-Israeli military operation that could directly target Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. U.S. officials say the Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi told CBS's Face the Nation that expects to meet Trump's envoys Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner in Geneva on Thursday. Witkoff and Kushner both advised Trump to give the diplomacy a chance before ordering a strike. It's being reported that Trump is growing frustrated with the limits of Iranian military operation. Unlike previously targeted operations, including the one to remove Nicolas Maduro from power, Mr. Trump has been told that any strike on Tehran's assets would almost certainly be a singular decisive blow. Instead, limited strikes could open the door to a wider confrontation, one that risks drawing the United States into a protracted conflict in the Middle East. President Trump in a social media post refuted any reports that General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is against us going to war with Iran. Kane, he said, would like not to see war, but if the decision is made on going against Iran at a military level, it is his opinion that it will be something easily won. Mr. Trump said Kane, quote, has not spoken of not doing Iran or even the fake limited strikes that I've been reading about. He only knows one thing, how to win, and if he is told to do so, he will be leading the pack. So I saw people comment on this. We covered yesterday how reportedly Dan Kane, the head general, told Trump, like, this is not going to be a limited thing. If you go to war with Iran, it's going to be long and protracted, and a lot of people are going to die. And then I had people sending me this Trump tweet going like, see, that was fake news. That's not what it sounds like to me. It's not all it sounds like to me. It sounds like Trump said, okay, yeah, this guy doesn't really want war. He does think it's a bad idea, but if I give the order, he'll follow it. Like, okay, that was never for debate. It was a question of Dan Kane's willingness to go to war with Iran. It was whether or not he told Trump that war with Iran would be devastating and frankly a bad idea for the military readiness of America. After all, Iran cannot hurt us really right now. There are lots of places that can. There are lots of countries that we're enemies with, like China, that does have an ability and a desire to do us harm. And is it so smart to literally destroy, waste, God only knows how many planes and soldiers' lives and aircraft carriers to go after Iran, a country that does not have the capability to hurt us? So we're going to massively weaken our military posture. We're going to massively just destroy a huge number of our military in a pursuit of something that literally does not threaten us, cannot threaten us. They don't have a missile that could hit us. They don't have nuclear weapons. They don't have aircraft carriers menacing our shores. Like, they just, unless they're hitting the bases that we put there to menace them, they don't hold a candle to us. They don't threaten us at all. China does. Russia does. These other places do. Like, this is the crazy thing. If you were China or Russia, you'd be begging America to attack Iran. Right? If you hate America, wouldn't your number one piece of advice be to attack Iran? If you're Russia or China and you're looking for a way to massively hamper the American military, to do severe damage to them, the same way that, we use Ukraine to attack Russia, and it's like this brilliant, Lindsey Graham thinks it's this, amazing idea. They're like, oh, we don't have to spend any of our lives. We just have the Ukrainians kill Russians for us. I'm sure Russia and China feel that way about Iran. Yeah, go attack Iran. They'll fire their ballistic missiles. Maybe Iran falls at the end of the day, but we'll do a hell of a lot of damage to America in the meantime. And as soon as the whole conflict between America and Iran comes to an end, they'll be bruised and bloody and easy pickings for the Chinese or Russian military, or maybe they'll get involved right out from the outset. Maybe as soon as we attack Iran, they'll attack Taiwan. Maybe Russia will attack NATO. Who knows? But our resources are not infinite. We have to decide where to send aircraft carriers, where to send forces, including tens of thousands of American soldiers. So if I was Russia or I was China, if I was America's enemies, I would be begging for them to go to war with Iran. Looks like we are. The U.S. moved more than 100 planes to Europe and the Middle East. This is from the Washington Post today. The U.S. military has rapidly increased its presence near Iran, shifting more than 150 aircraft to bases in Europe and the Middle East since a second round of nuclear talks between the United States and Iran ended without a breakthrough on February 17th, according to publicly available flight tracking data and satellite imagery reviewed by the Washington Post. Current presence of U.S. military forces in the region is among the largest for more than 2 decades, since before the Iraq War in 2003. The build comes after President Trump threatened to attack Iran unless a deal can be reached to restrict Iran's nuclear program. But again, that's not even accurate. That's not even what it's about anymore. They're talking about ballistic missiles. Why do they keep talking about the nuclear threat? Because that's the one that seems like it's worth going to war over. But that's not a threat anymore. That's not even really what's being talked about. It's their ballistic missile program being talked about, which is not a threat to the American homeland. And then you have the real problem, which is that story right there. Missed funerals and blocked toilets. Iran deployment takes a toll on U.S. sailors. This is from the Wall Street Journal. One sailor missed the death of his great-grandfather. Another thinking about leaving the Navy after almost a year away from her toddler daughter. 2 more said the ship had sewage problems. President Trump's decision to extend for a second time the deployment of the aircraft carrier USS Gerald R. Ford is taking a toll on the ship's sailors and their families, leading some to consider leaving the Navy when they return to their home port, according to interviews with sailors on board the ship and their family members back home. And so basically, the USS Gerald Ford was only supposed to be out for at least something like a 6-month mission, and they've been out at sail for nearly 300 days at this point, which is kind of a brutal thing to do to your sailors, to be honest with you. I mean, it's difficult and sort of traumatic enough, especially for somebody with young kids. Say goodbye to your child for months on end. Like, that is a massive sacrifice that you're asking people to make. Massive, like unimaginable. I wouldn't make it personally. Like, I can't imagine not being there. Like, your kid, I mean, kids grow so fast. You don't see your kid for a week, and it's like, who is this kid? You know, they change completely. Imagine your kid not recognizing you when you get home. Imagine, not being able to, like, actually hold your child for several months on end. It's already such a massive sacrifice for these sailors to make. And it's like, oh, by the way, we're extending it. Oh, by the way, we're extending it again. So now it's been a year. So now you leave, like, heartbroken. You're going to have to spend 6 months away from your kid. And then they just extended, twice as much. Why? Because, Israel loves killing kids. And if we don't destroy Iran, then they're going to have to price for that. No wonder the sailors are clogging toilets. So apparently now the USS Gerald Ford is having these major sewage issues, and they're like having to dock. It's like an emergency. They have to dock in Greece and aren't able to get to their station because they're being flooded with sewage water. And apparently that's on purpose, which is kind of like in the old days in wooden ships, there was a thing called like cannonball rolling. And basically like at night, there'd be this rumbling in the ship, and it was the discontented sailors would just roll cannonballs down, and it would like hit feet of the officers. And it was just a little symbol. It's like, we're not happy right now. Because forever until to this day, mutiny is like an existential threat for the Navy. You get even just one sailor on board that starts like, spreading discontent, dissension in the ranks. You can actually like lose a ship over that. They will literally commandeer it and take it to the enemy. Like, that can happen. It's a major concern. So like, this is a big risk these people are taking. People are actually flushing things down the toilet in order to clog it as a act of mutiny. Like, they could risk, court-martial and execution over that. Tells you how they feel about what they're being asked to do and how they're being treated. And it sort of made me second guess the seditious six. Where are the seditious six around now? I mean, they were all eager to tell soldiers not to follow orders when they were bombing Cuban or Venezuelan fishing boats. When they were bombing Cuban, just refused their orders. Would that be still telling? I want to take your call. But let's continue with what's here. I think this was a very good explanation of what's going on with the USS Gerald Ford by somebody named Shanaka Adenslam Herrera on X. They say this: the USS Gerald R. Ford has been at sea for 241 days. For deployment, she's now heading back towards the Middle East for a third time. And the Wall Street Journal just published what the Pentagon does not want you to hear. Sailors are missing families, missing births, missing their children's first steps. The ship's sewage system is failing, requiring maintenance calls every single day and acid flushes costing $400,000 each. Crew members are telling reporters that they want to quit the Navy. Morale is described in terms that defense journalists have not used since Vietnam-era reporting. This deployment is on track to reach 11 months. The post-Vietnam record is 294 days set by the USS Abraham Lincoln during COVID in 2020. The Ford will break it, and she's not coming home. Here's what the human toll can tell you about the strike calculus that no OSINT flight tracker can. The U.S. Navy operates 11 aircraft carriers. The Ford carries approximately 5,000 soldiers and over 75 aircraft. Extending the deployment twice at enormous cost to crew retention, family stability, and mechanical readiness is not something the Navy does for leverage. The Navy fights extensions. Carrier groups, commanders fight extensions. The families lobby Congress to fight extensions. Extensions happen over institutional resistance when the mission authority, in this case the commander-in-chief, has determined that the asset cannot leave the theater. The Ford cannot leave the theater because nothing has replaced her, and the mission she was sent to support has not been completed or canceled. Think about what extended twice means operationally. The first extension signals that the original timeline was optimistic. The second extension signals that the mission itself is probably changed. You do not burn through crew morale, defer scheduled maintenance, and risk retention crisis across your most advanced warship for a contingency. You do it for a commitment. Now connect the dots. The Ford crossed into the Mediterranean on February 20th, adding her air wing to the 500-plus aircraft already in the theater, 9 C-17s carrying 700 tons of munition en route, hundreds of personnel evacuated from Al Udeid. A P-8A is mapping the Straits of Hormuz. The IRGC is massing at the Iraqi border. Khomeini has activated shadow government protocols. Lindsey Graham is lobbying for strikes. Trump's deadline expires in days, and Witkoff just told Fox that Iran is 1 week from making bomb-making material. is again absurd. The Ford's sailors are paying the human price of a decision that's already been made in everything but name. You don't break post-Vietnam deployment records, destroy your crew's families, and risk the readiness of your most expensive warship to park it in the Mediterranean as a prop. The $13.3 billion ship is not a negotiation tactic, it's a weapons delivery system, and has been held in place at extraordinary cost because somebody in the chain of command has determined she will be needed. Sailors do not miss their children's births for bluffs. The stage is being set. The stage was set weeks ago. What you're watching now is the cost of holding the curtain. And that in response to the Wall Street Journal article about the massive toll that this deployment is taking on the U.S. sailors. So again, it's not just about recognizing the, negative that this is inflicting on the Navy men that are being forced to deploy. It's about recognizing that that is being taken into account and that the cost is considered worth the expense, if you understand. The goal, I guess, is worth the risk that they're taking. It also concerns me because, as we know, the New World Order's absolutely favorite way of getting America into a war is by destroying a ship. The USS Maine, the Lusitania, the Gulf of Tonkin. I mean, this is a tried and true practice, right? The only time it really failed was the USS Liberty. And that was because they fought harder than the Israelis expected and refused orders to go down with their ship. But it's not unlikely that they tried again. And so I'm a little bit concerned that there's this ship, the USS Gerald Ford, that apparently is kind of a piece of junk, kind of has a lot of problems. Like that's one of the things people are saying, well, there's no evidence that the sewage crisis on board is deliberate, right? People are saying, well, their sailors are flushing their clothes down the toilet to deliberately clog the toilet to cause problems because they're not happy with their extended deployment. But other people are saying, well, no, it's just that the Gerald Ford has always had problems with this. They had to be repaired like 32 times in the last year. And it's like, it sounds like keeping this thing afloat is really expensive. Sounds like it might be a perfect target for an Iranian nuclear, an Iranian ballistic missile to take out, to give us the casus belli to go in. I don't know if that's the case, but without historical precedent. There was a move in the First World War. It was actually Winston Churchill designed this operation. I believe it was the Siege of Gallipoli. It's the Strait of Istanbul right there. And basically the plan was we can force our way through. The British Navy had this plan. I'm just blanking on the name, but I think it was Gallipoli. But basically the plan was we have all these old ships that are kind of not fit for purpose anymore, so let's sacrifice the ships. I was like, well, we got all these ships. They don't really do much, but if we get enough of them and we just have them all attack the strait at once, some of them will get through, and it's fine if the rest don't because they're basically scrapped anyway. And it didn't actually work because the captains of these ships were so, it was such an anathema to them to like sacrifice a ship. Like their whole point is you don't let the ship go. Like it's the whole point of them being captain. And like it was just so unnatural for them to like put their ships in harm's way that they didn't quite have the aggressiveness that they should have. And so the whole thing just turned into a giant debacle, and it forced Winston Churchill to retire. Like it was a total shameful embarrassment for the British military, the British Navy. And Winston Churchill like went into his period in the wilderness where he was totally out of power, in part because of his plan that completely failed. But that plan was at least predicated in part on the idea that they had all these ships they didn't need anymore, and so they wanted to find a useful use for them. So I'm not saying that is necessarily why the USS Gerald Ford, in its dilapidated and dysfunctional state, is being placed within range of Iranian attack. But like I said, it wouldn't be without historical precedent, just so you know. All right, I think we can move on here. I think we've said enough about this before I just start to repeat myself. Except I'll just say as a final note, as a very final note, this is from Sprinter Press on X, and it's, I guess, a selection from the American magazine called Iran's Military Power Could Accelerate the Decline of U.S. Global Hegemony. And American magazine wrote, what has deterred Washington from a military attack on Iran is Iran's real and significant ability to drag the U.S. and the entire region into a difficult and prolonged, exhausting war, which could unimaginably accelerate the process of the decline of the U.S. global hegemony. And so when you read this, you have to understand, and if you've been watching my show, you already know what I'm going to say. That's the point. That's the point. That's one of the reasons that they want to get America into war with Iran. The whole, like we know their plan is to start World War III, to finish the job of collapsing Western nation states, destroying the populations of Europe and America, and in the ashes of what promises to be a scorched earth type of conflict, they'll build the one world government, and of course, Israel will be a hegemon, as Benjamin Netanyahu keeps talking about, saying as soon as we spread peace to the whole area, by which he means takes out Iran, then we will be, our own hegemony in the Middle East. Yeah, Iran's secret weapon is a plunger. So, this is presented by Sprinter Press and others as like, this is a reason, this is in the negative column. When you're weighing the pros and cons, this is firmly in that con section, and it would really weaken America worldwide. And it's like, okay, but now think of the conflict through the eyes of the Jeffrey Epstein class, if you will, of the international masters of the world. They want America to go down. Well, one of the reasons they're getting us into war with Iran is because it's a very convenient way to massively weaken the American people and to cause just chaos and division here at home. I mean, they really would get absolutely everything they want if they just get America to go to war with Iran. So we shouldn't do that. So I think we shouldn't do that, is my take there. And actually, let's go to clip 29 here. This is Ted Cruz basically saying that it's been decided we are going to go to war with Iran. He, of course, is giddy at this, as we know what his priorities are. Let's watch.
We are at a moment, Joe, where in the next 6 months, we could realistically see the regimes in Iran, Venezuela, and Cuba all fall, and we could see them replaced with governments that want to be friends with America. Now let me be clear. There are 1,000 ways that can go wrong, so I'm not being Pollyannish about that. But if that happened, that would be the biggest geopolitical shift since the fall of the Berlin Wall. And so tonight, I expect the president to talk about historic successes over this last year, because it really has been an extraordinary year, both in national security and foreign policy, but also in domestic policy.
How would you, if you were the president, how would you approach Iran? Is it another limited strike to try to prevent nuclear enrichment and to say we're serious? Do you go beyond that? Do you hope that somehow organically it happens? Because when you break it, when you own it and you break it, we know what's happened in the past.
So I talked to the president last week about this, and what I urged the president, I said, listen, the regime has never been weaker. They are teetering. There are real-world consequences to losing a war. The Ayatollah lost to Israel in the 12-day war. They are weaker. The regime is weaker than it ever has been. And what I've urged the president, do not miss this opportunity. If the Ayatollah is removed from power, it will make America much safer. This is the leading state sponsor of terrorism in the world. The Iranian regime is responsible for murdering hundreds of American servicemen and women. They fund terrorists all over the world. And so what I've urged the president is, number one, support the protesters and arm the protesters. Let the people of Iran, give them the ability to overthrow their government. And number two, I think there's a very real possibility we will see, potentially in a matter of days, limited strikes. What we're not going to see is boots on the ground. We're not going to see a ground presence of American troops there. But I think there's a real possibility of targeted strikes that are designed to support the...
Give them the ability to overthrow their own government. I said it quite out loud.
Iranian people who are protesting, not designed to put America in the middle of it, but designed this regime, the Ayatollah, when he chants death to America, I believe it.
Okay, yeah, okay. So apparently within the next few days, we'll see limited strikes.
That is crazy.
But Iran said that they're going to respond to any strikes with overwhelming force. They apparently are not playing this game anymore. So I don't understand how that would work exactly. I mean, you can support limited strikes, but what happens when an aircraft carrier goes down? We're going to back off? It's just so retarded. And literally all the talk of nuclear enrichment, I mean, they don't even talk about that anymore. Now they're talking about ballistic missiles, which doesn't even make sense. You know, you got Witkoff being like, they are days away from being able to produce industrial missiles. And it's like, what does that even mean? They have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of ballistic missiles. What are you talking about? What technology are they days away from achieving? Not nuclear technology. You're just buzzwords about ballistic industrial technology. Like, what are you talking about? They have literally nothing. Okay, so the whole nuclear thing, that's not really a good reason. The whole, oh, we're supporting the protesters kind of falls flat when you also have your Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, bragging about creating the conditions that inspire the outrage. It's not exactly Iran is just, the leadership is just naturally so hated. It's that the American government has deliberately waged economic war against Iran in order to infuriate the masses, which are, of course, being funded and empowered to a huge degree by Israel and America as we send in the Starlink, things that get confiscated, or all the Mossad agents that are going in and arming the protesters. And again, it's so funny that, like, if you were to say these protests aren't legit, this is Mossad, going in and trying to cause problems, because there's videos of, the protesters with Israeli weapons firing at Iranian state security forces, trying to get, a massacre to break out. You'd be called a conspiracy theorist, and how dare you, anti-Semite, and then it's like, well, just ask Ted Cruz. Ask Ted Cruz whether it's a crazy conspiracy theory to arm the Iranian protesters. He's advocating for it, and we're already doing it, so just stop. So again, it's like, who's the antagonist here? Who's the bad guy? I mean, Iran, again, doesn't have the ability to hurt us on the American homeland. They just don't. So all of this is all just in service of Israel, and not even Israel's existence, but their continuing destruction of their neighbors. Again, I just have to reemphasize that all of this is in service of Israel being able to carry out genocide unimpeded and unopposed.
Hey, bud, you forget much of the motherfuckers is already here in the States. Aren't you missing the point, buddy? How many came over the border in the last 4 years? How many was already here in the sleeper cells? Yeah. Damn, that shit was good. I need to stay out their kitchen.
That's it. Not their existence, not their survival. Just their genocide. That's what all this is for. And it's just absolutely outrageous and ridiculous. And so, despite the talk about nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, in reality, those are not concerns of ours. No, it all goes down to they chant death to America. At the final hour, that's the excuse that they have to give us, is that people in Iran, who we have deliberately starved, who we bombed last year, who we have, invoked and inspired riots that have left allegedly tens of thousands of people dead, and it's like they're supposed to love us? Yeah, I'd hate us too. What are you talking about? I don't know how to emphasize this enough, and I feel like I need to put it in some sort of new context or frame, because this is just what they're saying. This is what they're arguing, and I don't know why people treat it like it's reasonable. They're literally saying they're going to start World War III. They're going to go to war with a country significantly more powerful than a place like Iraq, which was a complete quagmire disaster for us. because they chant words we don't like, because their people oppose us and don't like us, because we've been at war with them clandestinely for the last several decades. Like, this is unbelievably absurd. Unbelievably absurd. Like, insulting. And let's go to clip 49 here. Again, when it all comes down to it, this is the reason they want to send your sons and daughters to die, is because people in Iran, who we have antagonized relentlessly for decades on end, don't like us. Let's watch.
But what the United States is doing to ensure that not only America is the safest country in the world, but remains the strongest country in the world.
Do you consider Iran a threat that remains, Rob?
Well, look, Iran chants death to America. So you tell me if that's a threat. Elena.
You tell me if that's a threat. I mean, they chanted death to America. Okay, well, so do half of the liberals at protests here in America. Can we kill them? I want you to kill them first. Then we can get to the people who don't have the ability to kill us, but generally want to. We go to war with people here. I mean, if that's what it takes. You know, apparently population of people just chanting death to America. I mean, I've heard that from people here in America. Let's go to war with them. We bomb them.
Shit.
Can we drone strike them? America just won't have the ability to kill us, but generally want to. We go to war with people here. I mean, if that's what it takes. You know, apparently population of people just chanting death to America. I mean, I've heard that from people here in America. Let's go to war with them. We bomb them. Can we drone strike them from the stratosphere?
Oh, sheesh.
It's just the most absurd thing you can possibly imagine. They chanted death to America, therefore we need to go to war with them. That's retarded.
Chill.
It's very retarded.
Chill.
It's very sad. It's very sad that they're probably going to get their way, because it apparently does not matter what the American people want or whether it's conducive to the continuing existence of our nation. They're just going to do it. It honestly sucks. But we'll move on. Some very weird goings on here. Let's talk about Mexico. Let's talk a little bit about Mexico, shall we? Because there's a couple interesting things happening. Go to clip 21st. This is Mexico's defense secretary talking about where the weapons that the cartels are using come from. He's a little misleading. I'll clarify here in just a second, but obviously continues to be this insurrection by the cartel in Puerto Vallarta. Let's go to clip 20. This is the Mexican defense secretary explaining where weapons are coming from. He says it's already been mentioned here. Speaking of the strategy in general, since the beginning of this administration, 23,000 weapons have been seized. Of those 23,000 weapons, 80% are of U.S. origin. So in this case, the proportion is roughly the same. Okay, so 80% of the weapons seized from the cartel waging war against their own government, 80% of those weapons are American in origin. There's a couple possibilities here. And probably all of these are true. One is that programs like Fast and Furious literally just directly shipped guns to the cartels. That definitely happens. That's proven and incontrovertible. Then there's the claims that we've heard a lot of, that the U.S. military, just like base commanders, will be in league with the Mexican cartels and will simply be selling their surplus weaponry for personal benefit. That's also happening, I'm sure, to a great degree. But then there's where the vast majority of these weapons come from, and that is that the American government sells them to the Mexican government, and the Mexican government sells them to the cartels, or the American government gives them to Ukraine, and the Ukrainian government sells them to the Mexican cartels. I know this because there's video of it. Let's go to clip 19 here. This is Mexican drug cartel gangsters fighting the Mexican government. These are the trucks that they're driving around, and they've got Ukraine flags on the side. Let's watch. There you see the armored vehicles the Mexican cartels are using to wage war against their own government. And on the side, and you saw it in the first little frame there, is the Ukrainian flag. So this is an American military, piece of American military equipment that was given or sold to Ukraine that somehow made its way back to Mexico and is being used by Mexican cartels.
A Ukrainian flag? What the fuck? What kind of shit is that?
So play the video again and just pause it in the first frame, and so just so people can see in case they missed it the first time. Right there. See the Ukraine flag right there on the side, the decals right there on the side. That's where it came from. Then you've got the Mexican government going, these are American resources that the cartels are using. Well, yeah, but they've been shipped to Ukraine first and then sold by Ukraine, or they've been shipped to Mexico and sold by the Mexican government, or by rogue base commanders here in America, or by deliberate programs like Fast and Furious, which supposedly was going to track weapons through the cartel networks, but didn't actually have a method to track them and didn't actually record their serial numbers. So in effect, they just gave a bunch of weapons. It's like the scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail when they build the wooden rabbit and the guys in the castle bring the rabbit inside and then they're outside the castle and they're like, okay, so now at night when they all fall asleep, we jump out of the rabbit. And they'll look around, they're like, wait, we're not inside there. Wait, we've missed a major point of what we're supposed to be doing here. That's what Fast and the Furious was. Well, send them all the guns and now all we have to do is track the guns. And they're like, wait, but we just sent the guns and no way to track them. Crap. So again, was that an accident? Was that incompetence? Or was that America causing chaos in Mexico by funding them? Oh yeah, they also trained in Ukraine, how Mexican cartels became militarized killing machines. Weapons from U.S., training Ukraine. No evidence Ukraine sold U.S. weapons to Mexican cartels. No, it's just a Ukraine flag on the side of the car. I'm sure Mexico they're just liberals. They're just good liberals, and they're showing their allegiance by support of Ukraine by displaying the flag, I'm sure. Yeah, this was Fast and the Furious. This was it. You send the weapons into Mexico with no way of tracking them, and only once the weapons have been dispersed do you look around at each other and say, well, wait a second. We're supposed to be tracking these things we just sent in. Whoopsie daisy. That's it. That's how it goes. All right, we're going to open up the phone lines for your calls in the next hour. I also want to remind you, if you go to thealexjonesstore.com right now, you're getting 25% off our Methylene Blue bombshell product, game changer for everybody that tries it. And then Methylene Red, it pairs with Methylene Blue to maximize its power with a ton of great B vitamins and just other vitamins and minerals that you're not getting on a daily basis because our food has been completely...
This shit crazy. Oh shit, wait a minute. Let me go back to that. Shit came back in kind of like, ugh.
Globalist. Good morning. Doc P. Chambers here. I'm on the road. We are in Dallas-Fort Worth. Today is the 24th of February of the year of our Lord, 2026. 1836, William Barrett Travis wrote a letter inside the Alamo. Fellow citizens and compatriots were besieged on all sides by enemies. At that time, under Santa Anna. Right now, the enemies are different sort. World economic types, globalist types. You name it, you put it in there, in the dotted line there, what it is, and understand. Texas, our culture, our way of life is under attack. America, our culture, our way of life is under attack. From those that wish to turn Texas into an investment tool, or those that wish to take away sovereignty and supplant it with other things. That's why we're in this fight. So I'm asking you, as I went down early to vote, we recommended to our folks to vote on the 3rd, on election day, because you might as well get used to it. When I get in office, we will fire the Secretary of State, and we will make that an elected position, so that people understand that voting is the primary tool with which we have a voice. I'm sorry about the noise. William Barrett Travis went on to say, I'm calling on everything dear to the American character to come to our aid with all dispatch. With all dispatch. Nearly 200 defenders of the Alamo died, and they decided not to cross the line, giving them the out from defending the Alamo. And as William Barrett Travis signed off and said, victory or death, they accepted death because they understood that they were going to fight for their life. The life of Texas, the Republic of Texas. I'm asking you to vote. Republicans, get out and vote. Like me, when I was on the road, I had to vote in my hometown. Right now, I'm needing you to do the same. You make it too big to lose, too big to steal on the 3rd of March.
Boy, it came in hot. Gotta have sentiments of the Civil War. These motherfuckers talking about fighting. That's what they're talking about doing. They done amped everybody up with these Epstein files. And the outrages. Right, it's righteousness. I can't knock it at all. Let's see, I got about 20 more minutes before I take my ass to bed. Yes, sir. Let's see what Mike Adams got to say.
Welcome to the special report about U.S. military readiness and the failures of the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is America's most expensive aircraft carrier. I think it cost $13 billion to build, and the toilets don't work. And you've probably seen some of this in the news recently where the sailors on the ship, there's apparently 4,600 of them, they're having to stand in line for extended periods of time, like 45 minutes, just to use a toilet. And the toilets are breaking down and clogged up, and there have been some pretty disgusting videos floating around out there. Speaking of floating around, that's also what's happening in the restrooms on the ship. Raw sewage is just sloshing from side to side. So apparently that's the case. Now, first of all, there are numerous problems with the U.S. Navy, obviously. One of them is that the crew on the USS Ford, I believe their deployment was supposed to be 6 months. And yet they've been on that ship for 8 months, reportedly. So they're already held way past their normal deployment time. And so they're starting to get a little, ship crazy or whatever it's called in the Navy. Yes. You spend too long, essentially.
One of them is that the crew on
underground, I mean, in a floating bunker, is what that is. You're not sunning on the flight deck out there. You live your life in a floating bunker. It sounds horrible. Eventually you start to go bonkers. And yeah, they're not happy. And then imagine adding to that.
Yeah, Mike, your visuals is diabolical. These little AI images you kept putting up on here is pretty wild.
No functioning toilets, or at least not enough functioning toilets, and the smell of raw feces and everything. It's like, why did I join the Navy again? Why? Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna go AWOL after this kind of event. But importantly, what this shows is that there's not a level of military readiness, because if the psychology of the sailors is so disrupted, they're being held too long and they can't use a toilet and it's a horrible situation, how are they?
Extra buttery popcorn. Shocking.
They're going to be when it comes to doing their job, in whatever station they're on that ship. And I don't even know why they need 4,600 sailors to run a ship like that. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but what are they all doing? I mean, some of them are running radar, and some of them are running weapon systems. Some of them are obviously running, the nuclear power station maintenance, and then the physical maintenance and everything. Plumbing, and there's the kitchen, right? So it's a whole floating town, basically. But how are they going to do their jobs if they're not able to focus? That's my question. What's the mental readiness of these sailors? I suspect it's not very good. But there's more to this story. So I did a bunch of research on this, and it turns out that this vessel, started using what's called a vacuum collection, holding, and transfer system, VCHT, because everything in the military has an acronym, of course. And this has been breaking down actually since 2023, when the carrier was initially deployed. NPR was able to retrieve documents via FOIA request, and then the Wall Street Journal confirmed these documents, showing that the carrier has only 650 toilets for 4,600 people, that sailors have wait times up to 45 minutes, and then that engineering teams are working 19 hours a day to try to keep the toilets working. So how'd you like to be a Navy plumber spending 19-hour workdays stomping around in other people's feces? Yeah, woo, that doesn't sound like a great job as the ship is sloshing from side to side. 205 breakdowns were recorded during a single 4-day span of time. The problem is rooted in fundamental design deficiencies that the Government Accountability Office, the GAO, found back in 2020, saying that, hey, your pipes are too small. Your pipes are too small. Yeah, I'm not gonna get crude here. I'm not gonna try to, but all the sewage that's coming from these toilets, all these hungry sailors, it doesn't fit in the pipes. Okay, it just doesn't fit in the pipes. So you need bigger pipes because you got bigger bowel movements. Okay, it's just the way it is. The Navy said doesn't matter. We're gonna claim it has no operational impact, and we're just gonna keep going. But now it turns out that the system, it also gets built up calcium deposits in it, apparently, is what I'm being told, and that they have to do an acid flush, kind of like a descaling flush. Like if you live in a home on a well, you have hard water, you know what I'm talking about. You've got mineral scaling all over your drains and dishes and everything, right? Well, it costs $400,000 per acid flush to do an acid flush and try to descale the pipes. And they've done this at least 10 times on the ship, and it's still not working. And I thought, since glyphosate is actually a very effective descaler, did you know that? Glyphosate was first actually developed as a descaling agent by a chemical company. They would pour glyphosate into boilers, for example, to remove the mineral deposits in the boiler. They'd use it to remove heavy metals from pipes, sewage pipes or plumbing pipes or what have you. I was thinking they could just feed the sailors way more glyphosate, and then they would crap out the descaler. Okay, of course I'm not serious about that. I don't want to feed anybody glyphosate. But since Trump is all in favor of glyphosate, seems like they should be crapping out the descaling solution right there on the ship, and then they don't have to use an acid flush. They just put extra glyphosate in the bread or whatever. Which, since the Trump administration loves glyphosate, this seems like a natural thing for them to do, right? But yeah, it's all crazy. It's crazy. But there's something else going on here that's kind of interesting. According to sources, the Navy officials have said that they have found some, quote, improper materials being introduced into the system. This means that the sailors on the ship have been flushing things like T-shirts, mop heads, brown paper towels, commercial toilet paper, and a 4-foot piece of rope. Which I'm thinking, how do they know that didn't come out of one of the sailors? I mean, who knows? maybe it was a tapeworm, huh? Who knows what they're feeding them on the ship, right? But anyway, some people believe this is sabotage by the sailors because they don't want to sail into a war with Iran and get killed. Because perhaps many of them know that the aircraft carrier really cannot defend itself. I mean, against Iran's new anti-ship missiles, which are significant, by the way. So this wouldn't be the first time in history that this has happened, where sailors have sabotaged their own ship in order to sort of force it to dock so that they don't have to be dragged into a war. I mean, it's happened before. I don't have proof that that's the case, but when you start finding T-shirts in the toilets, that doesn't sound like an accident. Like, I just flushed it and it sucked my T-shirt in. Like, dude, what were you doing with your T-shirt? Were you wiping with your T-shirt? How did your T-shirt get in the toilet is my question. What are you doing? That's not the proper way to have a bowel movement, it turns out. And then if they're finding mop heads in the system, like, what are you doing with the mop? Were you just plunging the toilet with the mop and then the head came off? Like, okay, I think it's sabotage. That's my guess, that it's sabotage. But who knows? It could be a combination of sabotage and also bad engineering, bad designs. Because, look, the Pentagon is a giant black hole for money, where money goes to disappear into the pockets of all the, the military-industrial complex people who give kickbacks to senators and congressmen, etc. It's a giant laundering system, money laundering, not mop head laundering. It's a giant money laundering system. And it's filled with incompetent people and corrupt people. So, the money that goes into the military, unfortunately, doesn't go to help the sailors or the Marines or the pilots or whatever. It goes mostly into the pockets of corrupt people. And then the equipment that ends up in the hands of the actual soldiers or sailors is subpar equipment. That's the whole story of Ukraine for the last 4 years is money pouring into Ukraine, but it's not going to the soldiers, is it? No. It's all these corrupt officials taking it, squirreling the money away and then vanishing. So yeah, same thing happens in the United States. I'm sure the same thing happens in Germany and Russia as well. I mean, it's universal. China as well. But it's definitely happening in America. So that's why these ships suck. But I'm wondering if what the sailors could do as part of the attack on Iran is the sailors could crap into buckets and then launch the buckets on the missiles. And it would be like an ancient catapult system. We're catapulting like fireballs over the castle walls, but in this case, it could be like poop buckets flying through the air, landing in Tehran or wherever. You think that would be effective? Would that be good? Could we conquer Iran with poop artillery from the aircraft carrier? Because all the soldiers, I'm sure they would be happy to contribute. I mean, the sailors, they can contribute to the airborne poop assault squad. But on a more serious note, the upshot of this is that the ship is going to have to apparently dock frequently so sailors can use the restroom. It's kind of like when you're on a long road trip with your kids, let's say, and then your kids are like, oh, I have to pee or whatever. So you pull over to a rest stop, right? Well, in the ocean, there are no rest stops. So that they're either going to have to dock somewhere and everybody rush off and go use the toilets, which sounds like a disaster. It's like, here's 4,600, poop-heavy sailors flooding into the local town, or you're going to have to just go up on deck and poop over the side of the aircraft carrier, which would be or something similar. And wouldn't that be a photo opportunity for the modern U.S. Navy? Yeah, here we are, the most modern aircraft carrier in the world, but we have to squat and poop over the edge of the flight deck because the toilets don't work. Whew, okay. In fact, apparently there's so much raw sewage sloshing around in the restrooms down there in the lower decks that I jokingly said they should rename it the USS Gerald R. Fjord. Some of you know what a fjord is. It makes total sense. Bro, well, it turns out that when he said that giant second sound, he was talking about the United States Navy toilet system. That's what it has become. A giant floating, it's not so much an aircraft carrier, it's a sewage carrier. I mean, they're looking for a place to dock to donate biosludge to the local farmers. Yeah, if you think that's gross, that happens in every major U.S. city where the biosludge is dumped on local farms. And the farmers are told, it's fertilizer. Sure, okay. And everything else. It's more than fertilizer. It's fertilizer plus. But anyway, yeah, that happens all over America. So we're a nation that builds giant floating sewage transport craft that we call aircraft carriers. Maybe they should just be called aircraft carriers. I think that would be... I'm sorry. There's such low-hanging fruit of jokes in this topic. I can't resist. I mean, but I'll stop because we could go on, but I'll stop. It's just... Is this not one of the signs of the end of the empire? I mean, come on. The most advanced navy in the world, the most advanced aircraft carrier in the world, $13 billion. Do you know in the early days of this carrier, they couldn't make the elevators work? You know that? Like for 2 years, the elevators wouldn't work. I'm talking about the elevators that move the aircraft up and down. Because, they store them under the flight deck too, right? They couldn't get that to work. They can't get the toilets to work. What's next? The lights don't work either, so we're all in the dark. Everybody's got to have flashlights. I mean, is this a modern Navy or is this a joke? It's like a $13 billion floating joke. And I think this thing costs like $1 billion a year just to operate. Something like that. This is my guess, but it's something huge. So every day that this thing is sailing out there is costing you and I some amount of money, while it's making a mockery of the total clown show of the Pentagon here with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War. Yeah, well, it's hard to make sailors and soldiers fight if you can't give them a restroom. And by the way, I'm not even making this up, but the crew of the ship, they have reportedly been reaching out to the A-1B propulsion plant planning yard at Newport News Shipbuilding for technical guidance. That's what's being reported here. Propulsion plant? They are going to catapult to poop. This is their plan. We don't need missiles. We're going to talk to the propulsion plant and see if we can propel this stuff somewhere. Yeah. Oh my God. Oh. Anyway, that's the situation. Maybe Trump will call off the invasion of Iran due to the stuck toilets. Maybe some innovative sailors on the ship have prevented World War III by flushing their t-shirts and mop heads. It's like, good job, mate. You stopped the war by stopping the toilets. I guess it's worth it, but good luck. All right, well, enough of that. I've commented a lot about the incompetence of the United States military. It's outmoded technology. It's crazy morale problems. And this isn't all Trump's fault, by the way. Trump's only been there for a year now in the recent administration. A lot of this I trace back to Obama, who really forced out a lot of the better military leaders in the Navy and other branches and brought in a bunch of woke idiots to run the military. And since the wokeness took over the military, even under Biden also, the wokeness, some of these ships were having gay cross-dressing parades and things just to pass the time, I guess. Then, competency became a second-tier priority. And this is the result of that. We have a military that just no longer really functions that well. And I think that if Trump does order an attack on Iran, I think it's going to end in catastrophe. And so hopefully he'll call it off. And that would be a huge embarrassment for Trump and for the U.S. military. But it would at least prevent an escalation that could lead to world war, which none of us want. So let's hope the poop clogging sailors continue to jam up the toilets, and maybe we don't end up in a global thermonuclear war. Imagine that. We saved Earth with mop heads and clogged toilets. Yeah, that'd be one hell of a book to write one day. But thank you for listening. I'm Mike Adams here, and if you want to hear more of my analysis, some of it's more serious than this one, you can hear that at brightvideos.com. That's my new video site. In addition, I'm doing articles on all these topics at naturalnews.com every...
All right, Mike. You just repeated a bunch of shit the old boy said. Interesting times they are, yeah? Interesting times. Let's see. Oh, shit. About that time, ladies and gentlemen.
Revolutionary flames burning deep inside my heart. Great fires, reconstruction, and that ain't even the start. Copper fists raised high, aimed arrows, let them fly. Navigating the storm, it's always calm in the eye. Man, fools the system, returning fire in the dawn. Show some heart, Return to fire in the dark. Real niggas stand up. Return to fire in the dark. Yelling fear. Return to fire in the dark. Ancestors' blood in the soil, ink on the scroll. Kings in the shadows, but the throne's still cold. Echoes of the ghetto, gunmetal swinging low. Freedom ain't free, you know the cost. Skulls and bone. This a mama getting business. Back alleys whisper secrets to the stars. Bullet holes tattoo the hood like memoirs. The block's a graveyard, angels with battle scars. Chasing revolution, but the devil stay on guard. Revolutionary flames burn deep in the heart. From the ashes of the streets where the riots start. Copper fists raise high, tear the system apart. We the fire in the dark, show some heart. We the fire in the dark, break, man, boost the system. Return the fire in the dark, show some heart. Return the fire in the dark, real niggas stand up. Return the fire in the dark, yelling freedom. Return the fire in the dark. Poverty's a noose, hanging dreams by the thread. Politicians promise change, but we still end up dead. Fed lies on silver platters, feast on lead. The pen and the pistol both aiming for the head. Fuck some chains rattling, echoes of ancestors. Rebellion's a symphony, truth is the instructor. Loyalty's a gamble, trust under pressure. Life's a chessboard, pawns measure the treasure. Sins of the father bleed into the son. Cycles of the system, revolvers weigh a ton. Write our own history, ink mixed with the gun. Revolution ain't finished until the war is won. No fun, just run. The rabbit got the goddamn gun. Revolutionary flames burn deep in the heart. From the ashes of the streets where the riots start. Copper fists raise high, tear the system apart. The system, return the fire in the dark. Show some heart. Return the fire in the dark. Real niggas stand up. Return the fire in the dark. Yelling flim. Return the fire in the dark.
Ghana. Breeze on the beat. Come on, you scroll past everyone is sign. Laugh it off, call it doing fine. Coffee cold on your crooked desk. World on fire, you just need a rest. You scroll, you blink, cold years to slip. Head down in headlines, hard out of sync, you joke. I'm fine, your coffee's cold. You missed the moment, chasing the goal. To be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. Inbox red, but you mute the sound. Talking big with your head in the clouds. Weather changes while you're turned away. Storms already on your street today. Your mama call, you let it ring. Type call you later and change the thing. Your kid just danced in socks on tile. You caught it sideways, forgot to smile. To be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. Look up just once, let it hit you. Let it hit you. Oh, truth hurts, so what? It'll save you before it breaks you. What if this day is all you get? Would you still hurry or taste it? Yeah. You scroll past another headline. Mute the sirens in your head. Change the channel on the chaos. Say you'll deal with it instead someday. Friends are shouting from the shoreline. You still laughing in the tide. Building castles out of deadlines. The water's on your side, yeah. Be unaware of the times presented to the eyes, a mistake you can't afford is a gamble with your life. You say I don't wanna know, but the wave is at your door. To be unaware of the times is a cost you can't ignore. The signs of the times all around you, but you can't see it, huh? Unable to see with your true eyes and a calcified pineal gland. Wake up. This whole set, ho. Gonna. Backroom bar, sticky float. Back door left, brown envelope. Changes hands under the table. Gold ring flash, he says, kid, this stays between us. Ink on the napkin, Soul on a string, jail tag still fresh on his knuckles. Smell of bleach on the bills in his duffel. Corner store mirror got a crack down the middle. He stares at his own face, can't solve that riddle. Mama said prayers, but the rent said otherwise. He learned quick how to turn a watch into a sunrise. Pawn shop clerk, eyes glued to the floor. How much for your shame? He just asked, need more. Dirty deals and total corruption. Everybody smiling for the camera, cutting veins off screen. Dirty deals and total corruption. Shake that hand, kiss that ring, keep your conscience clean. Dirty deals and total corruption. We all choke down what we're told is true. Dirty deals and total corruption. And it all looks gorgeous on you. Glass tower, polished shoes on polished stone. Offshore account, name spelled wrong by design. Charity dinner, raise a toast to doing good. Checking the mail, filed under never sent. Shorty in the backseat, hoodie on, jaw tight. Only 15, but he counting up the long nights. Phone on mute, got a name on the list. He staring at the letters like they carved in his wrist. Old head told him, son, this life don't love you, but the fridge too empty, so the truth cutting through. So he rides one glove, one cold decision. Whole block watching like a broke television. Dirty deals and total corruption. Everybody smiling for the camera, cutting veins off screen. Dirty deals and total corruption. Shake that hand, kiss that ring, keep your conscience clean. Dirty deals and total corruption. We all choke down what we're told is true. Dirty deals and total corruption. And it all looks gorgeous on you. Who signs the paper? Who breaks the pen? Who counts the bodies and calls it just business again? I see the numbers, you see a game. You change the story, then you change your name. Oh, murderers and thieves in a concrete halo. Blood on the teeth, but they move when I say so. Saints in a church, but the block got a credo. Judge in a robe, never walk through the ghetto. Murderers and thieves in a concrete halo. Sleep with the sins and they wake when the pace slow. If the world wanna point, let it point at me though. I was raised in the light, made my peace with the shadow. Dirty deals and total corruption. Everybody smiling for the camera, cutting veins off screen. Dirty deals and total corruption. Shake that hand, kiss that ring, keep your conscience clean. Dirty deals and total corruption. We all choke down what we're told is true. Dirty deals and total corruption. And it all looks gorgeous on you.
Oh, dude. Yeah. The money mister. Let's go on the track. They flood the block with sugar. Yeah. Call it love in a bright red can. Y'all just say pressure too high, my brother. But the corner got a 2-for-1 plan. They lace off school to sirens. Yeah. Mad with those cameras on the keys. Guidance counselor juggling 30 broken stories. Yeah. Meanwhile, prisons beating on beds. They say this beer on the radio. Same creed, chain, same dead screw. Tell a young empress she only worth a shake. Tell a young king he only worth a pill. This is math in the backroom legend. Every life just a line of squeeze. Talking market stamped on our faces. Low map mark, take what you please. Poison pushes in designer suits. Smile while with that clean white teeth. Demonic schemes in the ballroom hole. Turn our babies in the balance sheets. American genocide. They dress it up nice. New war, new deals ain't nice. We numbers, we ain't your price. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. They turned our Harlem to a slogan. $1 million, you right by the church. Ashy playground broken, swing said liquor store shining on every purse. They cut the bus line to blame us. When we late, when we can't clock in. Boss been talking about personal feelings. His cousin wrote the law, we drowning in. They call it church when they poison water. Call it order when they flood our streets. Send more guns where the books are missing in. That's why we fight just to eat. They buy a culture, sell it back, hollow paint our plane, that's a fashion trend. But the zip codes with the softest soil still decide how our story ends. Poison pushes in designer suits. Swear out with they clean white teeth. The money schemes in the ballroom hole. Turn our babies in the balance sheets. American genocide. They dress it all nice. Do all new pills ain't nice. We know we ain't your right. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. numbers, My grandma kept the merch in the kitchen, quiet praise over pipes and plans. She said, baby, read every label, they ain't feeding you, they feeding their plan. You playing greens in the cracks of the concrete. Bitch, our sons out of green, out boast. Tell our daughters they crowns ain't class, cause they much more fire than me and you post. We study law like we study scripture. Court things sunk like holidays. It's they wage war on the way that we leave them. We wage love in 1,000 ways. From the mark to the PTA meeting, from the cypher to the pastor mic. We 99s, we trace their money, try the shadows in the light. Into the boys and pushers in the signing suits. Smile while I wear that clean white team, demonic schemes in the ballroom room. Tell our baby it's in the balance sheets. American genocide, they dress it all nice. New war, new kills, ain't nice. We know pain, Joe Bob, we calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We calling out your American genocide. We live and do to some American. We live and do to some American genocide. Yeah. You have to pick a side. Yeah. 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 They profit when we're boxed in, color coded. Scroll wars, broke floors, mine's corroded. Got you barking at your neighbor for a headline. Why they signing off the city for a deadline? Yeah. Same rent late, same fridge bare. Same bus route, same blank stare. Why you beefing with the mirror, letting them demons in? Same wound, same blade, different spin. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You can fight me or you can fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unify, die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die. They sell fear like it's candy in a glass jar. Feeding panic to the masses, playing a black car. Left, right, that's a puppet in a split suit. Real power sitting quiet in a rich room. You throw hands at your brother in the same trench. Same cough in your chest, the same bench. If the landlord love you both in the same way, you ain't rivals, you just victims on a layaway. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You can fight me or you can fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unify, die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die. Hands up, not for trends, for each other. Name one win, they ain't split us to cover. We all broke, they just changed the shade. Same storm, different rain on our face. I'm from a place where they rather see us vilify. Scrolling through the pain, pick a side, then we signify. Algorithm war, every comment like a battle cry. Either we expand the circle, or we simplify. Feet keep telling me I'm right, that's a lullaby. Rockets all to sleep, while the roof sitting over fire. Leaders talk tough, but they courage only monetized. I'm just trying to build a bridge higher than the border signs. Kids growing up thinking empathy is obsolete. Hearts on red receipts, love lost in the data sheet. History repeats when we treat truth like a product line. Either share the water or we watch the whole garden die. So I look my people in the face when the sirens cry. Pull each other up even when we don't see eye to eye. Hands in the middle, swear we live in what we testify. Say we rise together, this the code, unified die. Unified die, that's the bottom line. Either hold the line together or they cut the spine. You can fight me or you can fight the lie. Choose one, unify or die. Unified die, hear the battle cry. Either build a bridge or we all run dry. You can hate your blood or you can hate the bind. Choose one, unify or die.
Peace. Right on for sliding through, T-Dub. And whoever else ain't said that. Oh, out.